Can we blur it somehow still?
Well, I wish you would have asked that before I hit the live button, because now we're live.
Oh, okay, whatever. I don't care.
I tried to blur and it like really bogged my computer down.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Well, I got two things. One, it really doesn't matter. Like, we're probably going to have a viewer right now, especially now that we moved back to a new channel. And then two, the point of this show is really about just being real and raw and casual and whatever. That's the entire point
fair enough.
of what this podcast is. So don't even worry about it. But with that said, we are live. And so this is episode 4 of Guys Night. And today we are going to be talking about New Year's resolutions. I've got, out of 3 episodes that we've had so far, I think most guests that we've had have been 3, maybe 4. Robert, did we have 4 on that one that you were on last?
No, it was, yes, it's 4. Yeah.
Was it 4? All right, so we got it beat. This is our highest number. I think we got a squad of 7 or 8 total right now. And this is the most of the crew that's actually been here for the show. So welcome, everybody. I appreciate you all joining for Guys Night. And so I'll just go ahead and get started with letting you guys introduce yourselves while I share some shit about the stream. So Jesse, why don't you, or no, actually Robert, you're the expert now. You got Jesse beat. You've been on more episodes than he's supposed to be my main fucking co-host.
Oh man. Okay,
well, my main co-host, Jesse. Go ahead, Robert.
I'm Robert, and I guess I'm the group expert on finance, business, and a third thing that I don't recall.
Economics, wasn't it?
Economics, yeah. Because I'm a business consultant and a startup coach for early stage startups. So that's what I do for a living, so to speak, as well as running a greeting card company selling the dumbest greeting cards you've ever seen in your life. As well as being a food and travel vlogger, which is actually how I met John. So
very cool. Nice.
All right, awesome. What about you, Jesse? I was trying to go to you before, but now I'll go ahead and jump to you this time.
Jesse White. I don't exactly know what my specialization would be. I have a career in social work. That's where most of my history is. I have a disabled son, so I've got a lot of history with dealing with the systems that are connected to that. Yeah, I'm just a big dude up in Maine, basically.
Jesse, don't forget your most important specialization, which we were just talking about.
Beer. Yeah, that's not really. I guess this is important to my mental health. Very important to my mental health.
So the Jesse, we were just having that discussion. Thank you, Rudy, that Jesse is in fact our craft beer expert. Usually I'm actually glad you mentioned that, Rudy, because I always have to ask you, Jesse, when you're on, but I was busy messing around with technical stuff. What are you drinking tonight? You gotta have something different.
It's a blueberry stout from Founders. And if I'm being completely honest, it tastes like grapes. But it's still good because I like grapes.
I was going to say
that. Throw something out here really quick.
Yeah,
I know we're not there in the show yet, but I always think it's really cool when you encounter somebody that is an enthusiast of something.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what it is, especially like the weirder it is, really the better. But like, it's like people, I don't know. I just always think it's a really cool personality trait when people will just take something for fun and then basically learn every single thing there is to know about it and like apply it to their life, like into their life. So
now they're usually very passionate about it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You want to know some inside baseball stuff regarding like beer like this? An interesting tidbit that I learned probably about a year ago is that most blueberry beer is actually made with grape.
Interesting.
Really?
Yep. So anytime you have, it's common with more than just beer too. So anytime you have a drink that claims to be blueberry, just really think about what you're tasting, and it'll probably be grape.
Nobody is going to follow that advice here. Nobody's ever.
I'm just saying.
He's drinking. He's over
It's
there.
Gonna happen. It's gonna happen one day.
He's over there drinking a Coors Light, sir.
Yeah, but I mean, Robert has a food group program.
Food channel, yes, not craft beer. No, that is that is the most useless piece of information that's been shared on the show.
No, next time someone's drinking a grape drink, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm just gonna throw it in there if it makes sense or not.
But I do want to back up what you said, Robert, because I was having a conversation with a gentleman earlier in our men's group, which, by the way, go check the description and join our Facebook men's group, men's support group. And he was talking about getting back into music. I'll actually read his comment later. But yeah, it's super important to have like a hobby or some kind of creative outlet for me, I suggest. But even just a general hobby, because, you know, Jesse, your level of passion for that, I think craft beer has been more than just even a hobby at times for you, right? I mean, tell some of these guys, they haven't heard the story about, you know, how craft beer and the community around it even has impacted you in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I have a deep network of friends now, thanks to the craft beer community. When my son originally got his injury that left him quadriplegic, a beer group had a kind of like a GoFundMe, but not official, just kind of like private money gathering, and they got up to $1,500 for me to be able to get some adaptable equipment for my son so that he could continue to play video games, which is something he enjoyed doing. So I've just learned to really appreciate the beer community and the people involved in it. There are, of course, bad ones like there are in any community, but some of my closest friends now are in the beer community, and they've done a lot for me and for my family. So,
and we actually had a comment from our Facebook group, I think, that hobbies are really easy to be thrown to the back of priorities, but they help out so much with mental health. And I absolutely agree with that, which is why I kind of brought it up, because I think there's a lot of guys out there that I've heard ask the question of like, or made the comment that they don't make friends. And by the way, that comment was from Mario, and that they don't know how to make friends or whatever the case may be. It's through hobbies. Like, you have to have a reason to be around other people in order to make connections with other people. Like, two guys aren't just going to randomly be like, hey, I need a friend. You need a friend? No, like it's through the course of a hobby that you're going to end up making friends. And so if you want to make friends, the idea to get a hobby is kind of the first step. You got a hobby where other people are involved, and you can go out and actually go to events and do things together. Jesse, we met through gaming and then got even closer through craft beer. And now you're one of my best friends in the world. As you mentioned, you've had a bunch of other friends. And so I don't know.
Even our kids are friends now.
Yeah, even our kids are friends now. And that's because of video games and craft beer. It's not just because we randomly liked each other on the internet. As a matter of fact, at first, when we met, we were not on the same, like there were these little cliques, and me and you were in opposite cliques at the time.
Yeah.
And but anyway, what's everybody else's thoughts on that before I kind of move on to introducing everybody? Anybody agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think it's 100% true. I think of all the friends that I've made, besides, you know, the friends that I've been friends with since like first grade or something, where you're just naturally, just organically friends, right? But everyone else who I'm still friends with to this day, it's either video games or gym or some you met at some party. It's always some sort of thing we're doing that is fun. Then you become friends. You know, I think that's 100% spot on. Of course, there are exceptions, you know, but overall, I'd say that's probably right on the money.
I do think it's something that a lot of men struggle with. There's this male loneliness epidemic that's kind of been in the media atmosphere recently about how men are lonely, they don't have connections, and this and that. And I think they don't know the steps on, well, how the hell do I make a friend? I'm not in school anymore. I'm not stuck with people. How do I even make a friend?
Sure.
Justin, look like you were going to say something, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I feel like though there's a lot of like talk out there about like being a lone wolf, and like, you know, there's also and that being like alpha male, like an alpha male trait to just be able to go out there, do your duty, go to work, be with your family, things like that. Also, like, I think it's hard, like, for some people to find hobbies. One, because work-life balance is crap, right? It's not even like a real thing.
Yeah.
And also, two, I think like finding a hobby comes with like even learning about like who you are and like yourself. Like sometimes, like, you know, the hobbies that you have when you're a kid, if you carry them with you when you're an adult, like people make fun of you for them, you know. But that's like who you are authentically, right?
Right.
It's good to have like youth, to bring your youth into, you know, your adulthood. Like imagination is a good thing, right? Like, but like other adults, sometimes women, sometimes men will crap on you for like even having a hobby, for expressing yourself, right? So yeah, there's so many like different factors that limit um like connection with other folks. And I feel like that stuff is intentional, because if we connect with each other, then like we can come together on like issues even, right? So yeah.
It is, I would agree. I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's why this is a social problem. That's why men are having such a hard time, you know, as far as a demographic when it comes to mental health and things. Women don't have the same social pressures when it comes to things that keep them from, you know, making as many connections as men do. And you know, to your point about the whole lone wolf thing and all of that, like, I think that's a symptom of, you know, well, if you are lonely and you don't make friends and you don't have hobbies and all of this, like, you got two options: cry about it or embrace it and kind of lean into it. And I think that's where a lot of that shit comes from. Like, I'm a lone wolf and all that. There are people out there, I'm not going to speak for everybody, who like to be, like, legitimately like to be alone. But I think for the vast majority of people who claim that, it's really just what they really mean to say is I haven't been able to find anybody since I've been an adult who I feel like even understands me, who I feel like I can even connect with. And I think if they were to find that person, they would be, you know, just as valued and get just as much value as any other man would. But again, when you feel like there's no other option, what are you going to do? Cry about it or just lean into it? Yeah, well, fuck it. I'm just going to lean into the lone wolf stereotype or mantra. You know what I mean?
I do agree with the whole social pressures, because I think about the things that I'm interested in, and I hide all of that stuff when I'm at work. I don't talk about any of it, because there have been plenty of times where I've said that I'm interested in craft beer and people just assume I'm an alcoholic. Or I say that I'm interested in video games and I am still a child because of
You
it.
need to grow up. Yeah. It's so
Right.
silly.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't talk about any of that stuff at work. It's definitely a face I put on when I go to work. So yeah, those social pressures are definitely a very, very real thing.
I think it's interesting that the the video game one is still so prominent. I work in a school which is majority women who are probably, let's say, 30 to 40-ish years old, somewhere around there, right? And so the other day, the of all things, the orchestra teacher, we talk about Final Fantasy sometimes, and he'll pull me in his office and he'll like play stuff on his violin from Final Fantasy, which I think is so freaking cool. Like, that's awesome. So we'll like
If he's
talk.
on social media, I want a connection.
Yes. I'll actually. He would love to show other people his talents, but sometimes he'll just randomly, there'll be kids like walking out of his class. He's like, "Hey, Rudy, check this out." He'll do like the battle theme ending little song or something like that. I'm like, this is so cool. Anyway, we're chatting the other day about the new Final Fantasy coming out. He's talking about how he doesn't have a PS5 yet. He wants to play it and whatever, right? And this teacher walks by and she's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And I was like, I already felt annoyed at myself that I already didn't want to tell her what we were talking about. But I was like, you know what? I was like, we're talking about a game that we like, whatever. So I keep talking. She's like, "You guys are talking about video games?" I'm like, Yeah. And she like looks at us like, you think we would have said we were, I don't know, something really stupid, you know? So clearly it still exists, which is totally unfair, but it is what it is, you know? What can you do about it?
And I mean,
can I just hop in here really quick? So
Sure.
just by a show of hands, like
everybody,
everything that's just been said about kind of the sentiments that can just happen for one reason or another around just having a hobby of some kind. Everybody agrees that is a thing that exists and it's just part of normal everyday life, right?
Yeah,
would you all agree with that?
Yeah.
I cannot relate to that at all, and I am trying to figure out why. That sounds crazy to me.
It's totally crazy.
That's like, I don't even know what that looks like. Like hobbies, like my world since I was a child has always been like, you're going to have a hobby and you're going to find one if you don't come up with it on your own. And like everybody I've ever known has had a hobby. And like,
well, I will say your biggest hobby, just knowing you, Robert, you've also shared on the show that you've just stuck with the hobby that you love for a very long time, because your creation and stuff. So I think in your case, you also just never lost your hobby that you love the most. And I do think that that's also what ends up happening to some guys is they have something that they're really into in youth, but then at some point in their life, through marriage, career, social pressure, whatever the case may be, they let go of it. And then in my case, for example, I was in the martial arts. Like I made it to black belt by the time I was 13 years old. And then I gave it up because when I got to high school, I kept getting made. I got sick and tired of getting made fun of with the Karate Kid comments and being joked on and all this other shit. And so I gave it up. When I tried to come back later in my 20s and, mid 20s and 30s, and I had kids, like I couldn't get back into it. And so if I had stuck with it, I think it may have been a different story. But I think that happens for a lot of guys is, we, as kids, we're so much more open to exploring and trying things that you find a hobby. And for the lucky ones, which, in your case, I'm envious of that you stuck with something. And
actually, while you're talking, I'm going to show you what my real hobby is. I have a visual of it.
All right. Well, shit. Lucky for you, I can keep talking as long as I need to. Justin, looked like you wanted to bounce in there. By the way, Justin, this is your first episode on here. I don't know how much you've seen of me in recent years, where I used to be quiet. Now I don't shut up. So you're gonna have to just jump in.
Me and you used to chat though, you know what I'm saying? So I know you could talk.
Only with people that I was comfortable with, like this.
Right. I feel you. What's that?
He is a tech dude.
Radio controlled stuff.
That's so cool.
That's crazy.
Now, how would you feel if someone was like, "Wow, grow up"? That's so stupid.
I would just, okay, fuck you.
Yeah, you're right. That's how
I will say, Robert, he has joked on a previous episode, or no, actually, it might have been one of our private hangouts about the video game thing or certain movies that people are into. That was different though, because there's a difference too between friends, kind of guys jabbing each other and giving each other shit. That's a lot different than the kind of social pressure that I was talking about, like where you really feel judged, like on a deep level as far as who you are.
This is one blade off of a helicopter.
Whoa.
There's two of these.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Didn't you build like a racing game simulator one time in your fucking house too? Is that the one behind you? Yeah.
Part of it.
Oh, okay. You had a whole ass setup, yeah.
It's all VR now, so I don't have the 3 screens anymore.
Justin, I did want to let you talk, and then we have some comments from Mario I wanted to get to as well.
Oh, I did want to say too that I feel like even as kids, like our hobbies are restricted, or like, cause like I know when I was growing up, like you could only have certain hobbies. So like your environment can like shape your hobbies when you're growing up, and even when you're an adult. Like, so if you grew up in a household or have friends that were that grew up in households that were receptive to hobbies, like or like allowed like expression and didn't like curtail expression, like, you know, then you would probably grow up in like become an adult and like have these great hobbies where you get to express your stress through like these cathartic like hobbies that you get to connect to people through people with. So like when I was a kid, like if I was like if I was like 13 and I was still playing with like certain kinds of toys and shit, like my boys would be like, bro, really? You know what I'm saying? It was only like basketball, smoking weed, and hollering at girls if they got off the bus. You know what I'm saying? And if you did anything else, it was
gave
like,
up karate because I had
you're weird.
I had that same friend group, and that's why I gave up karate. Like they thought I was whack. Like you should be like coming with us to like try and get into clubs before you're allowed to and holler at chicks. And it is a social pressure. It's unfortunate. It's not anybody's. It's not one like nefarious person. It's a systemic issue, and that's part of this. That's part of why we're doing this podcast at the end of the day, which is to address and talk about it, because I think it's just something that we don't fucking talk about, that there is that pressure. And there's a reason why men end up giving up those hobbies. And it's unfortunate. I did want to get to, just because I'm so grateful that we actually have somebody who's active and participating, especially Mario from the men's group. He did mention as he's grown older, he's lost more friends from childhood because of priorities. So it sounds like that's not necessarily an issue with, judgment or social pressure. It's just like the priorities are different. And so he does also want to know if anybody else has experience with that as well. So before we, carry on with introductions and stuff, I do want to go ahead and answer that question for him. Anybody got any thoughts?
I absolutely do. I remember distinctly when I first became a dad at 21. All of my friends that I had at that time were gone. My priorities completely shifted in life from, drinking, partying, that kind of stuff, to all of a sudden being thrusted into parenthood and having to support a family and take care of a child. So it was interesting to watch as some of them tried to make it work for like a month or two, and then pretty quickly they were all gone. Not necessarily their fault, like the comment said. We just had different priorities and went different paths in life. But yeah, it was stark how different things changed suddenly due to priorities.
I'm pretty sure, yes, and Robert being the newest, but he also still counts. Every single person on this panel right now is a dad, and I don't think any. All right, now I'll do what Robert did. Raise a show of hands. Is there anyone here who didn't have to change your priorities in life when you had a kid?
No, of course not.
No. It's a reality.
Okay. Let me just throw one thing out there. So I probably have this a bit of an erroneous kind of belief that you should sort of, to an extent, if you can, you should kind of try to go out of your way to maintain your general lifestyle, like barring any like, obviously irresponsible things, you know what I mean? Like don't be out in the streets per se, like that kind of thing, but like making sure that the things that you love, that you keep that in your life, because it's almost like one thing I've been thinking about a lot, like, because my son just turned a year old, is that, trying to make sure that I'm the best version of me.
Sure.
And the best version of me is me enjoying the things that I love, and not compromising on that kind of stuff. So, I'd say I've really kind of gone out of my way, but I would say my life, like what it looks like, hasn't changed much.
That's so crazy that you say that too, Robert. And the reason why that stands out to me is because you remember on the last show when Devlon mentioned, some of his thoughts on parenting, and you talked to him about You know, he was talking about the divorced parents and how he operates on such a, you know, like almost sitcom. You kind of just hit the nail on the head for as well when it comes to this topic, because the truth is you are absolutely right, but a vast majority of men out there, and by the way, Mario did, I believe he said yes when I asked that question, so he's on your side, Robert, where he hasn't given up priorities, which is what's kind of separated him from some of his friend groups. You guys are doing it the right way, but there is again a social pressure and a social you know, drive for young men, especially if you're young when you have your children, which I was, and I know Jesse was, and Justin was, that you need to sacrifice everything, and your priorities are no longer your priorities.
Oh yeah, as soon as my wife found out she was pregnant, everybody was like, "Oh, it's gonna be time to get rid of that motorcycle."
Yeah, and
I bought new tires.
Yeah, that's the social, and that's where that social conditioning happens, is because that is exactly what everybody says around you and in your communities. And but here's the truth: is that is terrible. And you are right, Robert. That I'll tell you guys, you know, as somebody, I had my first kid at 16, and I sacrificed a lot for my first two kids in particular, and that ended up hurting them just as much, if not more, than it hurt me, because you know what you were just describing. I wasn't fulfilled and I wasn't happy because my entire life was about them, and I was fucking miserable because of it.
Right. Yeah, I do want to clarify my statements earlier in that, yeah, I had to absolutely change my priorities, but those were priorities I wanted to change.
Yes.
Not necessarily because the system wanted me to change. It was because I had a child I needed to care for. So I really needed to get my shit together and be able to provide for somebody who was completely dependent on me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily because like the society was forcing me to change that I thrusted myself into those changes.
Sure.
I think there's a balance, because I can totally get what Robert's saying, but on the other hand, I think some people do take it too far the other way. Like he said, I got the same comments when my first kid was going to be born. Oh, well, guess nice knowing you, you know, that whole thing, right? I think there's totally a middle ground, right? Like, did I stop playing video games the way? Yeah, maybe I don't play as much, but I definitely still invest the time in it that I really like. And there's certain, I mean, believe it or not, but I've had disagreements at home with my wife about I almost put too much stock into my job, but it's because I really enjoy it. It's not like I'm a workaholic thing. It's more like I can't wait to see how the kids react to this fun thing I'm planning. And all that stuff, along with having kids and all of it at once. Yeah, I had to change some things, but I feel like I still do everything I did, just a little less, you know, still do it for sure though. So I feel like there's a balance, you know, everyone can strike a balance.
Holy shit. I just got a comment right now from Mario. He did mention, Mario, I appreciate, you know, you kind of keeping up with the conversation and joining us in this, because some of your comments have really brought up some really important stuff. But he just had a comment where he said, and this one hit me. I'll be honest, Mario, this one really kind of hit me in my heart. Shit, I'm going to try not to get emotional. He said maybe the alternative would have been just not being around for your kids, and that's a no-go, I think. Yeah, I think socially for a lot of men who want to be fathers and want to do the right thing, it is a no-go. For a lot of fathers, it is not a no-go, and they do abandon their children and they're not around. I'll be completely honest with y'all. There have been times where, again, because of the sacrifices that I made, but also because of my immaturity and how young I had my kids. My son was born when I was 16. I turned 17, 2 months later. So I was a 16-year-old father, and I knew I wanted to be a dad. I didn't have one, so I wanted to be one. And I'll tell you, there have been times in the recent past, in the last few years, where I almost felt like they would have been better off if I did just leave them early on and just abandon them and focus on myself, because I started blaming myself for things that, you know, my own behaviors and what I regret, the things that I regret, that I felt like they may have been better off, you know, and that's real. And so, God, I don't want to like praise men who don't stick around for their kids or anything, but I also do feel like, shit, I guess if you know that you're just gonna fuck them up worse than anything, you know, at the end of the day, I did a good job with my kids, and for all the things I regret, they are all kind, respectful, loving, confident, creative, you know, and I had an impact on that. But I also, you know, was not the father that I wish I had been, and I can understand maybe if somebody, I don't know. I'll end it there. I think you guys get my point, but I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
I just think that the fact that you recognize these things, right, and you're trying to address it, I feel like it's never too late. I feel like anyone could appreciate that you recognize. That's been a big thing for me this year, you know, is trying to be okay with accepting something that you're maybe doing wrong, or maybe even a trait, as hard as that is to accept about yourself, you know, and trying to improve it. I've always been pretty stubborn, you know, forever. It's only the last like few years that I've started to kind of be better about, do I really have to argue this point, or do I really have to be right about this, or can I just accept that this thing about me is inherently wrong and I need to fix it? And it's not even anything crazy. It's just something that I want to fix about myself. And so you try to do so. So I feel like recognizing the problem is, you're already halfway there, you know? That's at least how I feel about it.
Yeah, well, and absolutely, and that's the thing is that's where I know that whole, you know, kind of explanation that I just went on sounds like a dark, sad thing. I'm past that. I'm happy
Sure.
now, and you know, engaging with my kids in a fun, healthy way. And my third child, my youngest daughter, she's my best fucking friend. I learned my lessons with the other two. But I also got to the point where I now accept that, hey, I tried my hardest. I did the best that I could with what I knew. And all I can do now is use those lessons to do better. And you know what? I've got the next however long that I've got to do, and you know, do a better job and make up for the wrongs of my past. So let's see here. We got Nate, who also joined us, by the way. He mentions that he doesn't know what it's like to be a father, except for he's going to do something with me that I won't share on stream apparently someday. I'll leave that as is. But anyway, Rudy, we'll get to you now, buddy. Jeez.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, well,
I almost forgot.
We were still on introductions, but you know, when conversations come up, I want to let the conversations go.
Of course.
When I think those are important conversations. But tell everybody how you've been, buddy, how
Sure.
your Christmas was, and where they can find you too, since it's your first time. Rudy is also a fellow creator. Robert, just so you know, we're the three creators as far as different avenues on here. Rudy's a fellow creator as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Rudy. I've known Jesse and John for a long time through these Facebook groups. I remember just searching one day, like, I wonder if there's other people, you know, out there, you know, who like video games too. And that opened a whole, here we are, what, like 10 plus years later. So
Yep.
I'm so grateful for that too. I feel like I don't use the groups as much anymore, but I like that they're still there. Whenever I want to just jump in, do a quick, and John, you might think, because I'm so busy, like sometimes I don't post in the group, but I'm always reading everything. And even that alone to me is it's very satisfying and very helpful, you know, just kind of read people's wins for the week or whatever's going on. You know, I love all that stuff.
But
anyway,
I want to point out, thank you for that. Cause sometimes it does feel, I'm not gonna lie, you know, sometimes it does feel like, you know,
sure. I
appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I do a podcast as well. We talk about like video games, movies. It's called The Inside Bite. I do it with another guy who's actually in these groups as well. And it's the same deal. You know, our group there's like 100 something people in there. And it's like me, Jesse, him, maybe a few other people. And it's like, okay, it is what it is. You know, what can you do? But I love I love doing the podcast every week and talking and about anything, you know, like obviously video games is our focus, but sometimes we'll get on a tangent just like here about life, whatever, you know, and I really enjoy that. So I'm a 5th grade teacher. Mario was asking me in the chat there. I really love being a teacher. It's like, I feel that I've worked so many crappy jobs for so many years. There's only one job I had besides this that I really enjoyed, and that was like working with kids with autism. I did that for like 5 years. I really, really enjoyed that. But this is like the job I was made to do. You know, just you guys know how I am. Like at least John and Jesse, you guys will get to know me. And then it's funny because my friends always like, I don't understand how you're a teacher. Like, how did this happen? You know, and I'm literally the same way in school, but I'm doing a job too. But I'm still my same self, same, you know, joking around, having fun, sarcasm, whatever. And the kids love it. And I just love that job so much. And I feel like just helps me be a better person overall, you know? So I'd say if I'm an expert in anything, it's probably just I never escape kids ever. There's kids at school, there's kids at home. I go to sleep, I start again, kids forever. So yeah, that's what I'm passionate about, you know. So
nice.
yep.
We got Mario. He mentioned he's been he taught high school for 12 years and
cool.
community college for 3 years.
It's interesting whenever I talk to someone who teaches high school or middle school because they're always the opposite of me. They're always like, oh man, I don't know how you deal with those kids. I could never do that. And I'm like, I don't know how you deal with those high schoolers. I could never do that. I'm so happy where I'm at. I don't want to go so low that like the kids are super needy. They need everything. I like 5th grade because it's like they're still nice kids, but you can talk to them like a normal person, you know, you can give them some tough love or
I think part of it has to do with too because you guys are men in a traditionally overwhelmingly female profession, and so you know men typically are, I think, the majority of people who play video games, and so
I think so.
It's cool for the kids to, especially the male students probably,
who
are also into those things, right? To have them. So by the way, thank you, Rudy. You've been a guest on my show when we did the interviews and everything.
Yep.
And I actually interviewed you about being a male teacher. And so go check out that interview on my other channel, One More Light, because he shared some great insights and wisdom. And also thank you, Mario, for what you both do as teachers.
Thanks,
he actually did just mention as well that a ton of kids get attached to male teachers.
Yeah, that's
have a male figure at home.
100%. That one is probably the most important thing I feel about my job, especially some of the girls. You can see them having a hard time every day, you know, and they slowly start to kind of, you know, I don't know, you just see a big change in them by the end of the year, you know, and it has a lot to do with that.
There's got to be a balance there, though.
100%. Yes, yeah. I was actually telling John about this when we did the interview. It sucks because sometimes I feel like I'm just treating this kid how I would treat my own kid, just kind of being there for them, whatever. But then I have to stop sometimes because I think, well, how will someone see this, right? My female partner might do the same thing I'm doing, and it's totally reasonable, right? But I might do it. Someone might look at me funny, like, well, why are you doing that? You know, you give a kid a hug or you.
I don't necessarily mean that. I mean more like, is there like a gauge in not wanting your students to become too dependent on
I see what you mean. Yes. So you're right in that aspect as well, right? There's a good balance. Do I want them to be dependent on me for a portion of the year? Sure, right? But the goal is you guys are going to middle school, right? That's why that grade is so. It's like I love it, but it's tough because they leave and I don't see them anymore. And yeah, I'll hear from them and stuff, but my ultimate goal is to prepare them for middle school.
As well. I think Rudy is the type of guy. And I think this is something that we kind of hit on in our interview process as well, that he's got students that he did make a very deep connection with, and he keeps up with them. They come back and they check on him. So I do think that some people avoid it, but I don't necessarily, and I'm of course speaking as somebody who's not a teacher, but
no, but I think you're right though.
You know, it depends on the person. I think Rudy is more than happy to be there for a child who has a connection with him and would be. And there are a lot of guys out there who would be as well. There are coaches. I've seen examples of coaches and sports teams and stuff where they, you know, coach somebody in middle school and they keep up with that kid all the way up until they're in the NBA and college, even though that wasn't the original plan. But it's because how many NBA players or NFL players have we heard talk about their coach from middle school or high school who's still in their lives?
You know what? You know,
I'm still in contact with one of my basketball coaches.
There you go. Yep. My like most important like motto, I guess you could say, is like I want to be the teacher who the kid when they're our age is like, oh my God, I remember my 5th grade teacher. He was amazing. He did this, right? That's kind of what I want for these kids. More important than good grades and all that is, did you have a good experience? Did you feel like you were in a place that you're like safe in, you can share in, you feel confident in? And I'll turn around on these kids and I'll get, you know, I've had kids who I yell at them very harshly about something. And then the next day we're back to normal because they know it's like coming from a good place, right? It's not like some random person yelling at you or getting on you or something, So yeah, when they come back and they keep in touch, I'm more than happy to do so. But like Jesse said, there are some teachers I know who they'll be like, this kid reached out to me. I don't feel like responding. And to me, that blows my mind, but I get it. Some people want their own.
Yeah, whatever
everyone's different. But for me personally, I love those kinds of messages.
Don't try and be there for somebody if you are if you're not in a place or the kind of person who can be there for somebody.
Right.
Honestly, like that's setting them up for disappointment anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like don't pretend. Like I've had that happen before too. I've had friends who've given me the, you can call me anytime, and I call them.
And then they're not.
I mean, that was bullshit. It was just a nice thing to say.
I have to tell you, when I was doing casework, I could not tell my clients that they could call me anytime because they couldn't call me anytime.
Yeah. I think that's important, to be honest. Like here's what I can give you, especially
set up boundaries.
Put what boundaries you manage.
But Jesse, I don't think I actually answer you're saying. So for me, I think the most important thing I try to do is it's like a progression, right? In the beginning of the year, you start off all shy and quiet, except your exceptions. Then they start to become very attached, right? And I as well, somewhat. But I try to keep it at arm's length. And then there comes a point in the year where it's like every day we're all looking forward to coming to school. We're super close, all of us. And then towards the end, you start to like gradually let go because they want to go, you want to send them off to middle school prepared because it's way more of a solitary thing in middle school, right? You're going to 9 different classes. You have tons of different teachers, so it's almost like a progression. Does it always go perfectly? Of course not. But I always try to like attach and then let go, So, but there's definitely has to be about, you don't want it to be like, I'm your friend, right? It's got to be, I'm your teacher who really cares about you. I value you, but we're not friends, right? So it's a tough thing, sometimes to balance for sure. So,
and I did share a few of and so you guys know when I'm looking and this and this and that, I've got to figure out the technology or whatever to get the comments to just show up automatically. But unfortunately, I have to read and watch and then press a button. I'll get this shit figured out. This is episode 4. Give me a break.
Wait, right? I was seeing the comments popping up here. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's what I've been doing manually.
Oh, manually. I see.
I thought you meant that's why I'm like, Gotcha. So I'll figure it out. I promise. I'll figure out a solution. But anyway, with that said, we did have a few comments that I didn't want to hit on. There was one in particular that came very, very closely. And Nate and Mario, thank you both for watching and joining the conversation. Mario said something that really hit me as well, which is my motto. And this was him in response to you, Rudy, as far as how he tries to be as a teacher or how he tried to be as a teacher. His motto has been to be the person he needed growing up.
Yep.
And God, I love that. I love that. Like that. I feel the same way. Like with a lot of what I'm trying to do, the guy, this podcast, honestly, my other channel, One More Light, the men's group, the men's support group, and all of that. I'm trying to be a resource that I wish I had.
What was Nate talking about here? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt him.
No, it's all good. Which part?
But he said it isn't a protocol. There's a lot of kids in those classes. I'm just not sure what I said that he's referring to. I'm trying to.
It isn't protocol. Not actually sure what he meant by protocol.
Nate, let me know. I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, what did you mean by that comment that it isn't a protocol? There's a lot of kids in those classes, and that's why his comment came probably when we were in the middle of a conversation. So I think so. Yeah. How to actually line.
That'll be nice when we get that.
Make it happen on time. But Nate, I'm going to let you answer that question as soon as you can. But Justin, we're finally about to get through the fucking intros. You're the last one to go. I do want you to introduce yourself. I don't know, you actually are also a creative person. You've done some writings that you've shared in the private men's group. I'm not sure if that's something that you still do, but you're an old Army buddy of mine from back in the day, probably the oldest friend, out of everybody in this crew, from the earliest, like way before I met anybody else back in those old military days. So tell everybody about yourself. Welcome to the show, and love to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, John. I'm privileged to be with you brothers to talk about these things because a lot of folks don't really have the opportunity to do this. Like we talked about, like folks being alone earlier. But my name is Justin Freeman. I am from Brooklyn. I joined the military, went to a few different places, met John. I got out of the military, came back to the United States like in 2017 to New York City. And I've been back there since to Brooklyn. Right now I am a director of community affairs for a New York legislator, an assembly person. I've been doing that for the past 3 years now. I'm also an organizer, a political organizer. So I do everything from like volunteer recruitment, management, development. I do issue campaigns. I work on political campaigns. And I also do like mentoring, like at Brooklyn College, at my alma mater. Mentoring is something that's really important to me. Uh, I need mentoring, so I have a mentor, but I love like mentoring people that are coming up, as well. I think it's really important.
So is it mentoring specifically like professionally, or is it just like actual, more general mentorship?
So when I graduated from Brooklyn College, I did mentoring. I was in a mentorship program for a year before I got my job. But now I do it. So I do like alumni workshops with students for the past 3 years. So there's a few students that I mentor that I still have relationships with, but I've also taken that mentorship into my profession. So there are organizers that I work with to be like, hey, just to hear like what their organizing like questions are, dilemmas. I also learn from them while I'm doing this as well. So it's kind of like for me, it's an opportunity to interact with people, but also learn from people and hear from folks' experiences, because a big part of like organizing, political organizing or issue campaign organizing is experience sharing. Learning about what people are going through, breaking that kind of like solitude that we all have, you know what I mean? That we all have imposed on us. And that's a really important aspect of what I do. And the funny thing is, though, I don't actually like. I have like that as a hobby, as a job. It also like is a hobby of mine. But my friend network is not like that great. You know what I mean? So that's something that
I
I,
think you just dropped a
over the
couple of
past like
bars.
year or so.
I think you just dropped a couple of bars, and I'm not talking
Yeah.
about like some hot fire hip hop shit. I'm talking about your internet connection there at the end. I'm glad I got a laugh out of Jesse.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No. It's all good.
Yeah.
You're in New York. I get it. You got buildings and.
Oh no, I'm actually in right now I'm in Massachusetts, staying with my partner's parents. So like it's kind of, I've been here for like the past week, so it's a little bit hard with the
No.
signal.
That actually might make more sense. But yeah, you're. I saw your bars go down, and then you got very robotic. This isn't auto tune moment. You're not T-Pain. Chill out. Fucking with you, buddy. No, I love having you here, man. Very much appreciate it. Nate Bacon actually is the one who mentioned as well. Like you're doing good. You put in effort to actually making a change. And that's very appreciated, man. I've always looked up to you when it comes to that. You were very important to me at a certain time in my life. And so definitely glad to have you here. What about the creative stuff, man? We were talking about creativity. So before I jump into some of the topics that I actually had listed, I wanted to go back to that topic, creativity, hobbies, things like that. Justin, you were writing, not that long ago. And I remember telling you, like, you inspired me. And then you told me I inspired, like, that was a nice moment. Like, what's going on with all that? You still doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I still write. I wrote another piece that I have on Medium. And then also I looked back at I did a ethnography when I was at Brooklyn College that compared the 1918 flu pandemic to the coronavirus. And like I did interviews of people that got COVID. I wrote poetry in it. I took pictures. And I did that in 20 I finished that in like 2021. Uh or actually at the end of 2020. And it's been like the first time I looked back at it today. So now I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, how can I make it better? I published it and it was published in the Brooklyn Public Library here, but I wanna you know, I feel like I could write a little bit better now. So I wanna like refine it and like really like put it out there.
Yeah, and I
So
think
yeah.
that's the difference. It's funny that you say that too, because it relates to the topic. One of the topics that I had. By the way, Nate did share. I'll go ahead and share it on stream just to hype you up a little bit, Justin. That you're super interesting. Yes, he is. And I wish, as somebody who has a YouTube channel and this podcast, that I had that fucking voice. That fucking voice, dude. What the fuck? You should be narrating shit 100%. You are the hidden Morgan Freeman of the next generation. You got to stop writing and start reading that shit on stream. But it's always been like that too, ladies and gentlemen. This dude, he's a man of few words sometimes, but when he speaks, Jesus Christ, does it make you want to listen. So anyway, when it comes to those hobbies and being creative and things like that, and especially what you just said when it comes to refining, I think I made a post on the men's group and on my other public social media pages the other day, because I released a video recently, and it's the reason why Guys Night is now on its own YouTube channel, because I had a little mini viral moment. I didn't get anywhere near somebody like our buddy Rob over here. He's definitely got me beat on numbers when it comes to views and subscribers. He's been putting in work, and he creates quality content, and it pays off at the end of the day.
You see my thumbs down because it's not
Yeah,
paying off right
I know.
now.
You want more. You got high standards for yourself, but trust me, if one of my videos did half or a quarter of what some of your top performer videos have done, I'd be throwing a fucking party right now.
You'd be saying the same things I'm saying.
But my point being, so I had that video that I put quality into. And so the last year I've been creating YouTube content, I really was learning, right? Learning what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, what worked, what didn't work. But my goal was to just keep improving, keep refining, to your point, Justin. Keep, little increments, little steps, better lighting, better sound. Maybe I could change this, maybe I could change that. And then I released that video that I did yesterday, or 2 or 3 days ago now, and it went kind of mini viral. And I was so proud because I had actually put in a lot of effort. Like I, was learning things. And I think that is the difference between a hobby and what I mentioned in that social media post I made, which is, as adults, especially as men, I think we all have this aversion to sucking at things. And I had shared a quote, and the quote goes something along the lines of, if you ever want to be great at something, you've got to be willing to suck at it first. And I think that, especially as adults, we are not willing to suck at something in order to learn how to get better at something. We give up way before we're ever going to get better, because trust me, I could have given up on the YouTube channel. I could have given up on this podcast. I could have given up on the men's group when, I'm posting every week and I'm getting very little engagement or very little this. And there is this drive and this desire to be like, well, shit, I didn't immediately succeed and it didn't immediately blow up, therefore I quit, right? And
Well,
that's really
it's like
hard.
a matter of mindset, though,
Yeah.
kind of, right? Like how you look at things. Like also from what I understand, like people like if you're I think like being a perfectionist is like an aspect of like being afraid of like putting things out there, and some of that stuff can come from like latent trauma, you know what I mean, when you was a kid, or like issues that happened to you even when you was an adult. But I think like what's really important is even just putting stuff out there, like writing it, getting it done, getting it out there, repeating that process. And the refinement can happen through that process, especially if like you schedule like your output. So like I've been thinking about like New Year's resolution from one in one regard, right? Like what if I like put something out once a week and not like worry about like what people will say about it? Just do it. And then maybe spend the weekends, right? Or like the end of the month, right? Assessing like what I did. Is there something that I refine like my writing skills? Am I writing good outlines? Do I have good flow and things in what I'm writing? Um, I think also like with men is like another thing is, yeah, just like expression generally speaking, right? Like it's hard to it's hard to like see what you put out there for one, and then two, you're worried about like criticism, and what that does to your like self-esteem, which for a lot of us can already be low. So, you have this product that you're putting out there it's like a doubleness, right? It's a thing and it's you, right? And you're putting it out there and you're hoping that you get praise from it. But if you don't, like, you retract even further, right, than what it took for you to even put that thing out there. So we have to rely on each other to like do these things. I feel like, right? That's why we here. Like that's why you guys are the creatives, and we need to lean on each other in that way to, for support to put our stuff out there if we can.
Yeah, and I will say too, like, because you talked about, negative. Well, I can't remember the word you used, but it was something about like judgment from others about what you're doing. I think as well that I do want to throw out there. I'm speaking from personally, and I think Robert maybe. I don't actually know what your thoughts are, just based on how you felt recently about your own channel and your own creations. Um, Especially when you're an adult and you're doing something and sharing it with the world. This may be it seems vain in some ways, maybe, and it's hard to admit, but I think the bigger fear is being ignored, especially when you're sharing something. You know what I mean? Like if I'm doing a private hobby that's in my room and like I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks, but when I'm sharing something publicly, it is tough to move past the feeling that you're being ignored, right?
Yeah.
And that goes to my creations that I mentioned earlier, where you're trying to do something and yeah, you're doing it for the fun of it, but also like I'm not making a YouTube channel so that I can view it privately by myself. Like I'm trying to share shit with other people, and so to once you start feeling like, well, shit, nobody's listening, nobody's watching, then it goes even more toxic. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you have to say. What you have to say, like, shut up. Like, why are you even talking? Why are you even sharing this? Right? Those are the thoughts that come up, and then it's really hard to push past those. So you're right, Justin, 100%. But I think more so, it's like it's we want to be heard when we're doing these kind of creative endeavors as well. We want to be recognized. We want to be validated. We want to feel some sense of validation. And when you were talking about that lone wolf syndrome that we run into in society, apparently now you're not supposed to admit that that it feels pretty good to, yes, be validated, to hear nice things like, hey, you made a great video, like, oh, or I enjoy this group, as somebody said earlier, right? Like I feel like there's this social drive that I've felt as a man, in particular, to not need, I shouldn't care about that, or it shouldn't matter. No, yes, it matters. It matters. I put effort and I put time, and it matters when I hear somebody tell me that, hey, you did a good job. Pat on the back. That shit matters. But I feel like as a man, we've been conditioned to think that we shouldn't need or want that.
I also think that there are generational stressors going on here also, because when this is completely anecdotal, so take it for what it is, but when I look at like my parents and grandparents' generations, they would bash themselves against a wall until they're successful, basically. Where my kids and the kids they socialize with, and now my grandkids, they will give up pretty easily if they're not finding success. So I do think there's an interesting generational divide in the willingness to just continue to do something, even if you're not good at it.
Yeah, right.
Rudy, I'd be actually interested in your perspective as a teacher if you see that in school.
Well, I do want to get to you, Rudy, but Jesus Christ, we haven't heard from Robert in a long time. I do want to let him jump in. He was trying to talk in that moment of silence, and then he realized he was muted. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a professional with thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and this is the second show that he can't figure out the fucking mute button.
Because I've got this cough going on, so like I'm muting anyway. Whatever.
Yeah, I know. I'm fucking with you, buddy.
Shit talker. But like, I mean, I guess maybe I would throw some of it at generational. I don't know. To me, feels like a little bit of making excuses for them. Like, I feel like so much of that is like kind of wired up into who you are, though. Like your level of perseverance. Like I really only think you can teach it so much. Like I don't know. I've always been the kind of person that I need to second guess myself more. Because I will just swan dive into something and I've just decided it's going to work. And because of that, I don't accept no. Like once I've decided it's going to happen, like it's just going to happen, or I'm going to hurt myself making it happen. And, but like, I can't help it. Like it's wired into who I am. And like nobody taught me that. I had no examples of people like that. That is how I have always been. You know, I was a stubborn child. Well, that's what a stubborn child turned into.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, as far as, you know, people like maybe pushing towards things that they need to recognize that, hey, maybe this is not working out well for you. Because I've actually talked about this in the past, where you do also have to realize on a objective level what you have, what you have to offer, and what you have, right? And so, like, if you're terrible at public speaking and you don't enjoy it, then maybe being, you know, a podcast host, or, you know, making YouTube videos where you're talking to a crowd for the majority of time is not the best idea, is something to pursue, right? But you do have to, when you're identifying those things that you're going to go after, lean into your whys. And I think it might have been, who was it? Oh, it was Nate. It was you who said earlier, he had a comment in the chat saying, why is the foundation? And so you have to identify those whys very strongly. Why am I doing this? Because, you know, using my YouTube channel or this podcast, I'll use this podcast. My whys outweigh my why nots, right? Like I care about men's mental health because I've been, you know, through some shit, and I've been through the suffering, and I understand what it's like. And, you know, I want to provide some kind of platform, you know, to speak about that and to share it. I love public speaking. I've got experience with it. I love performing. I love creating. And so I've got all those whys. And then when I think about my why nots, I can't come up with a lot of why nots. But if you come up with why not, and they're legitimate reasons, I think that's when you should maybe, you know, consider finding something else, because you could have legitimate why nots. right? Like, no, don't be a public speaker if you hate public speaking and you don't enjoy it. That's a good why not.
Yeah, I think it's good to ask the question, right? And really be honest with yourself, which a lot of people are not. That's a hard skill to learn, you know. Um, but to go off what we were just talking about, that comment is really funny. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, I
Nailed
had to share that one. Jesse didn't even have to who commented that.
So I'm hearing what you guys are saying, and I'm thinking I'm actually glad Robert went first, because I really had to think, like, how is it in school, right? And I think maybe like 90% of the kids in the classes that I have usually try to work very hard, but I'm almost certain that that is, for the majority, is because they really, like, if they like their teacher, they really will try to show out for you and really try to work hard for you. Then I think of the kids who maybe that I've had that are really smart. Maybe they're not that into school, but they're just super smart. They try for, it seems to be for a different reason, more so they just don't like not getting it right. Right. I've had kids like that who they learn something new and they stumble, and I'm like, no, actually this is wrong. Like, let me show you. And they're like, what? I'm like, like, yeah, this part. They're like, well, no. Oh, like they almost can't accept it, you know? So I've seen both extremes, but then you also have to remember it's also sometimes it's not the fault of the person, right? Like, what environment you come up in, where do you live? Like, I work in an inner city, you know, a lot of these kids are you know, they'll miss school because they have to sit and babysit their brother or something. You know, there might not be a father at home. They might. I've had kids who live in a hotel. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of factors. But it is, to me, it is really impressive when I see a kid who's, I don't know, in a foster home being passed around, and they come to school and that's like their happy place. You know, they like work hard and they learn and they do really well and they don't give up. You know, so I don't know. It's back and forth, but I'd say more so than not. I know it's not an overall comparison because it's in a school, but overall, the majority of kids, I think, do actually try really hard. Do they always get it right? No, but do they keep trying? Yeah, for sure. Most of them. Now, I've seen kids who don't love their teachers, and it's the complete opposite. They give up quick. They don't really want to do it. They don't see the point. You know.
One of I really I'm hesitant to even go on this tangent based on what you just said, because I feel like maybe I don't want it to be disrespectful.
No, not at all.
And it can also maybe be controversial, but I was literally just having a conversation with my ex-wife, my children.
Controversy.
We're getting canceled, guys. All our viewers.
Thank you, Robert. I love it. See, this is why I need this crew. I need that. I need that. Yeah, let's start some drama encouragement. That is your specialty. So I love it. But I was literally just talking with my ex-wife, kid's mother of 20 of my 3 kids, and both my older children struggled so hard with elementary and high school. Sure. I struggled so hard. I dropped out in the 9th grade. I got a GED and eventually I got my bachelor's degree, but I was a 9th grade dropout before that. And you know, I'm not dumb, obviously, right? Like, I can figure out how to run this shit, apparently, which I didn't learn in fucking elementary school or high school, by the way. I think a lot of kids end up having to try hard because the school system, like, they are forced into things that aren't their strengths, right? When I was talking about that why and why not, right? Like, my kid, my daughter, my youngest daughter now, I take it so much easier on her. And I'm like, you know what? I don't give a fuck. Like, we get emails and this and that about things that she's not doing that she should be doing. No, that's not her. But the public school system in particular, and this is not a knock against the teachers, right?
No, not
you guys aren't the ones who fucking design these systems, are made to make a round peg fit into a square hole, as the saying goes. And it can end up breaking. Some kids, they will find the fortitude or whatever it takes to mold themselves to fit. Some kids won't, and those kids are not only not going to succeed, they're also going to have this internal narrative that they're a failure, they're stupid, and they're not worth as much as others because they didn't fit into that cookie cutter mold that wasn't made for people like them. And I won't let that happen to my younger daughter, right? There's this drive that I felt pushed with my younger two kids when I talk about regrets. Like when they were failing in school, it wasn't because they were dumb. It wasn't because, they weren't intelligent or whatever. They were legitimately struggling with other deeper issues. I have ADHD. My kids, I have other mental health issues as well. They struggle as well. And I remember the pressure from the school system that made me feel like I was failing as a father. I passed on to my kids by making them feel like failures as well, because I felt like I was a failure because they weren't succeeding, and therefore I was harder on them. And in turn, they felt like failures. And I'll never, we'll never let that happen again. But I'm sorry, that is a rant. I was talking about it earlier. I know that's a deep rant, and I hope it's not offensive, Rudy or Mario.
No, again, not at all.
You do so much, but I am curious what your thoughts are as teachers.
Yeah, I am actually glad whenever you or someone who's actually voicing a reasonable, grievance says something like this about the public school system, because first of all, the public school system has many issues. The one positive I will say is, as opposed to many other institutions, they are always trying to change. Like every year I go in, there's some new thing that we're trying to change to improve. I'll give them that. That being said, there are tons of issues, and this is where I get frustrated when I see. Now, to be fair to the people I directly work with, I feel like almost all of them, God, okay, this is a small podcast. I think I should be okay, but I'll say almost all of them, I feel.
How dare you, sir? All right, you have 1 million viewers by next week.
Imagine they messaged me. You were talking about me. How'd you know it was you? No. Almost all of them, when I do go into their classrooms and hear what their kids say and stuff, it seems that they're on the same page as me, as in the sense that they're really trying to go above and beyond to fill those gaps and address those things that you don't have to do, but you do because you really care about the kids, right? For example, I have kids who have 504 plans and IEPs and maybe ADHD, or maybe they need preferential seating, whatever it is, right? There's a million things. And then there's things that are not on paper that I just learned that this helps you, and so I'm going to help you get there. I feel like you have to be the kind of teacher who will go above and beyond. Obviously, no one can give 100% every single day, right? And the kids even know that. But I feel like you should try to be the kind of person who will go above and beyond to try to address those needs, right? Like I have kids sometimes be like, why are you doing that for them? I'm like, well, they need it right now, right? If you needed it, I'd be here for you. But you don't need me right now in this moment. And you have to understand that. And they get it, But there's certain kids that you try to go, you know how many times I've been out in the hallway, pull some kid out in the hallway in the middle of freaking class, but I'm supposed to be, I have limited time, but I'm over here listening to this kid about, well, he said this about me on Snapchat and it ruined my self-esteem. So, and I'm out here just talking, like little things like that, I feel are kind of taking an extra step, something that might seem dumb in the moment, but it's significant for the kid, and I feel like that's all we can do is, since we're not up here controlling the rules and the regulation, because the people up top clearly have not been in a classroom in a long time. Because some of the things they passed down to us were like, what, do you know what it's like to be a teacher? Obviously not, because you've forgotten,
And I do think as well, it's important to point out that like one of the reasons why I appreciate everything that people like you and Mario do, and I made it clear that I'm not talking about the best of the teachers that can be out there and the ones who are making a positive impact on the school system. I also don't want, we need more people who do have that kind of mentality, that kind of outlook to step up, because we need as many as we can to step up, because the alternative, like, of not participating in it, it's not an option. Like, that's just leaving the kids that are in these school systems and everything with even less positive options and encouragement and the role models that they need. So, it's like when people complain about any institution and then decide that they're any institution, you can throw in whatever one comes to your head. And then their response is, well, then I will therefore not participate in that institution. It's like, well, shit, right. That's just going to make it worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got a problem with it? Yeah. It's terrible. All right. Well, I mean, deciding that you're not even going to fucking jump in and participate in it is just going to make it worse. I mean, if the good teachers all leave, guess what? The kids are still in school and now they're stuck with all the shit teachers.
Yeah,
You know what I
It
mean?
goes so much farther beyond just the teachers, though.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. And that's the other thing, Rudy. In the long run, please, hopefully, you go for higher levels of impact. You
sure,
know,
sure.
like where Justin's at, like doing, more broader policy and,
Right,
and
right.
community-based change. Like, obviously, I know you've only been doing it for a few years.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you're getting that experience and all of that, dude, please, 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 with your outlook, consider going in to the
Sure.
more administrative and leadership roles to actually make fundamental differences.
one of
Sorry,
the one of the biggest memories I have of my entire schooling years is in my junior year of high school. My guidance counselor saying not even to bother applying to colleges because I won't make it and shouldn't even
Oh,
try.
that's horrible.
So,
That blows my mind that anyone would say anything like that. That's
and I know I was not the only person she told that to. So it is definitely a systemic
that's horrible.
thing of it goes beyond just the systems. People are
Yeah.
jaded, they're burned out,
Right.
probably underpaid. There's so many problems with the public school systems, and everybody, I think, is genuinely trying to do a good job. The system is just broken at so many levels.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I know Justin's got to bounce in a sec, so
Okay, you
go
did
ahead,
see
John.
that
You
as
can go.
well.
Yeah,
So,
and then I'll chime in after that.
Justin, if you do have to hop off at any point, feel free during.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I just wanted to say about what Jesse said, and like, I never look at systems as broken. They're working as designed, right? And all of these systems are working the way they're supposed to work. These are systems. I hate to like sound like a super leftist or whatever, but these are oppressive systems, right? These are systems that aren't meant.
You are kind of on the left. I know that. That's one part of why I invited you. I want different perspectives.
Yeah. These systems aren't meant to work like for us. They're meant to put us in place. You know what I mean? So if we think about them that way, we know that it's not me and you, right, that we should be bickering with. It's the people at the top that we should be trying to deal with, have meetings with, get them to write legislation, and put me and you in their place and threaten them and be like, look, if you don't put this school policy in place, I'm gonna vote you out and put people like me and you in so we could have policies that work for us. You know what I'm saying? But yo, thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all. I'll be active in the chat more, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, we'll have you back on.
Have a happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I was not kidding when I said
Later.
I'm having him on for a reason. Like those perspectives and everything he said, whatever side of the political spectrum you fall on, I think it's an undeniable fact that he's right in a way that the current public education system, it was set up a very long time ago. It was not set up and designed around the modern world and modern knowledge on how things work. And so there are updates that need to be made, and hopefully we do get changes at higher levels. That I can't tell you the number of posts I've seen. Very sad posts. Mario, actually, I think, aren't you one of them in the chat? Of great teachers who love the kids who left because of the bullshit. And
yeah, that's always unfortunate when that happens.
And it's always so sad. I've seen YouTube videos and Facebook posts and this and that from teachers who got into teaching because they love children. They want to guide and help. They want to be that positive influence. But then they're almost forced or pushed into positions where either their hands are tied to do the right thing, or they're pushed heavily into doing things that they fundamentally disagree with.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention too, and listen, I can only speak for one school out of however many schools, right? And it is very it feels good to see the people around me kind of on the same page as me, and it seems overall like we're all doing a good. Of course, you always have your one or two people who I can think of who maybe don't fall in that category. But one thing we all say at work that I feel like most people kind of live by is like, okay, no matter what anyone says, no matter what sort of rules get passed down anyway, just shut your door and do what you think you should do, right? And that's what we all do. You know, there's times where I do things that I'm not supposed to on paper be doing, but I feel that I'm spending my time way more valuably, and I feel like the kids feel the same, you know? I mean, there's been times where I stopped teaching entirely and we just address all the issues that are in the class. Okay, we all got to talk about this. We got to fix these, right? And I'm not supposed to be doing that, you know? But I feel like we all just, we say it like all the time. Anytime someone starts going, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to just close the door and just do what you got to do, you know? And that is, you can get away with something like that when your principal is almost on the same page as you and they agree with you. Like, just do what you got to do. I know your best interest is for the kids. Just do what you have to do, you know? Now it's different when you start getting micromanaged, and then it becomes impossible, right? So
yeah, I mean, that goes to even for the corporate world. When you're talking about your relationship with the principal, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers, is a quote that I've heard, very much so. And yeah, like I've got a great manager right now. She's on, oh, Jesus Christ, I hope. Fuck it. All right, this is my podcast. I'll say what I want. If you're watching, because I have shared it on my LinkedIn, all that. If you're out there watching, fuck it, deal with it. This is my private channel. Kiss my ass. That said, you know, she's been off on vacation this week, and I have had to report to her boss. And this week has made me realize that, holy shit, I might not be in this job if that had been, you know, the reporting structure the entire time I've been here. It's the person that I report to that happened to make the difference on my experience. And so, yeah, if you're in a school with a principal who doesn't have your back on shit like that, I can see how that has a very negative impact. I do want to, out of respect for everybody's time, again, I knew when I was very, very selective with the people that I invited to help me co-host this show. There are a lot of other people out there who I absolutely love, good friends and everything, but I knew that the personality types that we're going to have on this show, the rotating hosts and stuff, and we'll have guest hosts as well. If anybody out there ever wants to come on and join as a guest host, please let me know. But I really started our group with a select group of guys specifically because I knew that you all had backgrounds and experience and opinions and thoughts that I thought would balance well with each other. Justin was a great example of, you know, he put it very gently about his political leanings. And I appreciate the fact that he is a little bit more on the left side of the spectrum than I fall. I love that dude. Like, I'll always have love and respect for him, but I don't think I'm right about everything. I want to hear all kinds of perspectives. And so that's kind of the point of this show, but it also means we're going to get into some very deep discussions that can go on for a long, long time. And so I am going to go ahead, you know, my job as host is to try and keep things flowing on a reasonable level and keep things to a timely level. So I am going to go ahead and move on to a new subject. When it comes to the end of the year, we are coming up on the new year. So tomorrow is the last day of the work week if you're a Monday through Friday person. And then we've got New Year's this weekend. So that was kind of the main topic. We're over an hour and 22 minutes before getting into the main topic of this show. And it's about New Year's resolutions. So for y'all, are y'all the type who even make them? Do you even make New Year's resolutions? I know that I've heard a few people who are, you know, who think it's stupid and silly, and I get that perspective, I guess, a little bit. But I do have some goals and everything that I'm gonna be going after in the new year, and I'm gonna do the tradition, and you know, I'm gonna repeat it before, you know, as the ball's dropping, and have a toast to it. And so I'm looking forward to it. For me, it's continuing to go down this path, become better as a creator, better as a host, better as a, you know, podcast moderator and admin. And so I do take it seriously. And so those are kind of my biggest goals for next year. What about y'all? Who's got some New Year's resolutions or lack of that they want to share?
I guess I'll go. So I guess usually, I wouldn't say I ever thought it was stupid, but usually these comments are killing me. This year's to give John Blackface Martin shit. Okay. Anyway.
Has that been your resolution?
That is definitely a Nate Bacon comment.
Yeah, has that been your resolution
be, right?
the entire time I've known you, Nate? Like, literally. Like, It's been your resolution every year is just give me shit as much as possible. And post random memes in fucking chats.
There you go. No, I've never thought it was a stupid thing, but I never really took it seriously. I might say something and then I'd kind of like not really put too much stock into it. However, this year has been like tumultuous for me. It's been like a crazy year behind the scenes. Like I've had a lot going on. I've really, I mean, not to go on a whole tangent, but John, I've talked to you about like I got into therapy and I started taking an anti-anxiety medication, and this was after like a ton of other things that I've tried and everything, right? So I feel like my mindset has really changed a lot on certain goals, like setting goals for yourself, even in your own head. Now I kind of have some personal goals that I'd like to really, really pursue throughout the year, right? There's like stuff that I always do every year, right? Like I want to go to the gym more, or I want to do this more, right? I'm definitely going to do those again. However, a big thing for me this year coming up that I want to keep getting better at, which I've been trying to, is just letting things go, right? That goes hand in hand with the anxiety and the overthinking things, right? I have so much trouble. I'll come back to you an hour later and be like, but hey Jesse, what you said before an hour ago, right? Like that is like my worst trait,
Bruh, for one, I hope you have a plan, and for two, if you figure it out, please come back and let me
know. Yeah, mine's gonna require a lot of extra help, but no,
letting things go. Gosh, Jesse, I feel like you're probably
tough.
one who is good at that. Actually, Robert, I feel like you might be more on me and Rudy's level. Yeah, letting things go. Like again,
gotten a lot better.
Yeah. I've definitely made progress as well, right?
How?
I was gonna say I used to not be able to let things go. So I am a deeply rooted introvert. So I would hear somebody say something, and then I would go to bed thinking about it and not be able to sleep because I'm thinking about it. And then I would think about it for the next week. I would think about it.
Yep.
I have worked over the years significantly, and I can tell you that I'm mostly to the point now where
So Robert and you as well, this is my question for you and Rudy, that when I said that jokingly, I also kind of meant it when I said, do you have a plan? Because just like with saying I'm gonna get fit, like, well, do you have a diet plan? Do you have a workout plan? You know what I mean? Or just like I'm gonna make more money, like, well, do you have career goals or plans and strategies, right? Like even with that one, I'm curious how, like, what is the plan, or in your case, and in Jesse and Robert's cases, what did you do to actually get to that point? Because I have a hard time letting things go, and I always tell myself, man, I should be better at that, and I'm gonna try. And then it's like, well, I don't know what the fuck to do. How do I get better at that?
Yeah, well, I will say for myself personally, I used to really I wouldn't say I ever believed this. I was sort of indifferent to it, but I used to look at any like therapy and any sort of medication, or anything that's not my natural way of doing things. I used to kind of think like always like, well, I don't need that, right? I always was able to do everything myself forever. I've always been that way. And I've just gone through some rough stuff this year, and I started therapy, and that really helped me to kind of be more rational with my thoughts, like sort of put it out there into the world and talk through it. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be serious here in the comments.
I had to share that one. I had to share that one just to fuck with you.
I love it. That's great.
I could have not put it up on stream, but I had to fuck with you.
No. That was perfect. So that's helped me get much better at being more reasonable with myself and kind to myself whenever I'm being too hard on myself, right? And hand in hand with the letting things go is sort of these intrusive or obsessive thoughts, right? That start off as something really small and they spiral, right? And they turn into like, well, let me stop thinking about this thing. Then you start thinking about not wanting to you start thinking about stopping thinking about that thing. I know I sound crazy, but this is
no, you don't. And then you beat yourself up because you failed at it.
Right, because you failed at it, and you feel like I felt weak, and I felt like
anxiety.
I can't do it.
Anybody who's dealt with anxiety knows exactly what the fuck you're talking about.
Right. I go to the gym, which granted, to be fair, did help sometimes. I try to take walks. I try to use strategies, right, that I learned in therapy, and all of these things would help a little bit. But at some point, I was like, and my parents are very traditional, old school. No, you don't need that. You don't need it. Come on, and I struggled with it for a long time, and finally, I decided to give it a shot, and what I tried at first wasn't working for me. It wasn't helping. I felt like a zombie kind of, right? I was like, I don't want that either. And I kept going until I found something that like changed my life. And I'm still myself. You guys see I'm still the same person, but my mind is like, so it works in a clear way. It's so much better, honestly, and I'll sometimes when people hear this who are not familiar with these kinds of things, they think like, well, that's changing you, that's altering you. Like, no, man, this is just like, imagine a puzzle piece was missing and it just boop popped right in there.
Well, the reason why those people might say that, though, because it's a wonderful point that you brought up, and we've talked about medication on the show in the past, and I've also found something that really helps me as well with my terrible ADHD. But when people say like it changes you, if they even have experience with it, here's the thing: is they're kind of right if you're on the wrong thing. And that's also the downside of what it means truly to get help. And this is where my problem with modern messaging around mental health comes in. Is that there's a lack of reality check that we put out in our messaging on how hard it is to actually figure that shit out.
Oh yeah.
There's this oversimplification of, oh, just go get help. Just go see a therapist. Just go see a psychiatrist, and whatever, and everything will be hunky dory. No, it took me 10 fucking years, so many drugs, so many medications, so many side effects. There were drugs that made me feel not like myself. And as a matter of fact, it was 99.9% of them before I found the one that actually, was along the right lines. Because again, we don't want to admit, and the mental health community doesn't want to admit, that when it comes to especially the medication side of things, we're throwing shit against a wall and seeing what sticks. And I don't mean that to say that side of things, like psychiatrists or whatever, are evil or bad. Like, it's a lot better than what we used to have. But to pretend that it's an easy path is
not at all.
It's not an easy path.
And I consider myself pretty fortunate because I went through only 2 medications before I found the right medication and the right dosage. And now, like, my friend and I will joke about it because we're on the same one, just randomly, that happened that way. And we're like, man, we could sell a commercial about this, like how much it's really changed our lives for the better. And honestly, I'm working on strategies because my ultimate goal is whoever's comment that was is definitely right. It's not some 1 2 3 you're fixed, not like that at all. It's more like you see a gradual change in yourself, right? And you have to put in the work yourself, right? And those things combined, to me, it's not like, oh, I feel this. I feel a change in me. No, it's not like that. It's more like the week went by and I realized that I didn't spend time overthinking and overanalyzing and so much anxiety, right? It's like, oh man, you look back on it and it's there,
and that's usually a sign that it is actually the right medication, is that the change isn't as extreme.
Right.
You know what I mean? There are some medications where it can be
of course
noticed in a positive way pretty quickly, but those are more rare. I'll tell you, dude, like, I can't tell. I've been on at least almost double digits of medications where my dick just stopped working.
That's
you know what I mean? Yeah. And so the reason why I throw that out there is to say, like, this is part of the messaging that I'm trying to put out there, more realistic from a personal perspective. I'm not some dude who learned from, going to college and reading from a textbook. I know because I know a lot about medications because I've taken them all. And I researched them to figure out why my wasn't working, why I couldn't sleep, or this, and that.
Sure.
And I think that because of our messaging about it, a lot of people give up sooner than they should. And because it's hard when your dick's not working or you can't sleep, you know, and you've tried 2, 3 medications, and every single one of them has done something horrible to you.
No,
It's
tough.
easy to want to quit, and I want to put it out there, like, don't give up. It took me 10 years, and that sucks, and I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I didn't give up, because it's better than, you know, I eventually got to the point where I'm grateful that I stuck with it.
Yeah, totally.
Hopefully.
Listen, fellas, I gotta go, but it's been a pleasure, and I just want to real quick leave a few closing thoughts on that, what you were saying. I totally agree with what you're saying. Think about how you feel when you can't even control your own thoughts or your mind, and how like you got to push through getting the help that you need, right? Because to me, I got lucky that it only took me maybe a few months, and like these whole like therapists are hard to find a therapist in person who accepts your insurance and all this stuff. It's a whole thing. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, and you're going to meet resistance sometimes depending on who your friends or your parents or family are, you know, but to me, totally worth it. So my New Year's resolutions is number 1, letting things go, right? Number 2, getting even better at what I've learned in therapy, which is like talking about your feelings and getting them out there. And journaling's been a big thing for me. You know, I've been falling off of it. But I think it's super helpful to put your thoughts out on a paper, you know? So yeah, so I'd say those 2 are like my main ones. And then of course I'd like to go to the gym more on a physical level. So there's that. Those are my 3. But yeah, man, it's been great talking to you guys. So
yeah, love having you, Rudy. Thank you so much for joining.
Sure.
Hopefully you'll be on again soon.
Yeah.
And the kids that left you alone this time. So
I know they fell asleep eventually. I couldn't believe it. All right.
Yeah. Well, you have a good night, buddy.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you later, man.
All right. Robert, I know you as well. This is a weeknight. We are dads and regular dudes. So I know you got to go soon as well. So I'll let you jump in next with whether or not you even have resolutions and what yours might be before you go.
I don't. I mean, I guess maybe it's a resolution. Is more of a purposeful little change in the direction of my life that I've chosen to take, and that may involve not necessarily a career change, but a big, like, from a professional standpoint, like making big changes and moves. You know, maybe to a different area and doing different jobs. Just to reclaim my life, because it feels like it's gotten a little out of control. Like I'm doing
a lot of shit. I mean, you've got an actual profession, and then you got 2 side things that you do that are very involved, and you put a lot of time and effort into. And then on top of that, you're a dad. Like, how the fuck are you up right now?
I'm gonna be up for a while. I have things to do, actually. That's what I need to do. But like, you know, I just am. I've got to do less. Like it's the kind of thing where I started doing a lot of things because I needed to, like around COVID, like when that first started, and that's kind of peeled me away from. And it's funny to me because this is something I'm always telling people to focus on, but I never do it myself. And I've lost touch with my core competencies, is the word I use. So just kind of those things that make me happy, the things that I like, the things that I enjoy doing to make a living. I got away from those things because I needed to. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't need to be doing these things that are driving me.
Do you have, and I know you got to go, so feel free to let me know.
Well, I mean, I have a few minutes. I just was.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I do have a very important question for you based on that, though, because me and you do have a lot of similarities, including, the drive to try different things and create things. One thing that I had to learn very recently was to also let something go that I felt like I had committed to. And so I tried a few things this year that I was like, okay, this might be it. And I'm in. And I remember I have given them up. And I remember giving them up was hard, though, because I felt like disappointed in myself, wondering if other people, because I had shared it publicly, were gonna, if I was gonna be judged. do you have a hard time giving up those things that you've gotten yourself into, basically? Is that something that you struggle with? Is that one of the issues?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the biggest issue because the things that I've been doing, have made these projects or these organizations literally like my baby.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that have been under my direction for a long time, and I'm gonna have to just kind of put it. I gotta get away from it. Like it's just there's certain things that it's just my time to just let somebody else do it. But then there's other things where I'm losing myself, and it's difficult. But it's just kind of like I'm ready for it. Like I've just
what's
come to
funny
grips.
is to me too, it sounds like you're a bit of a victim of your own success, because I'll tell you this,
Well, that's exactly the truth, because the thing is the things that I'm doing, most of them was just me filling in. Like it was just me just taking care of something in that moment. And it was never supposed to be, some of those things, it was never supposed to be this.
Yeah.
And
I had the same thing that me and you had a meeting about, which I haven't updated you on this. You remember that meeting that we had?
Yeah.
From your entrepreneurship?
That's one of those things, by the way.
The other reason why I haven't scheduled that meeting is because I didn't know this last time that we talked, but I was feeling it, and now I've discovered that I don't actually want to do it anymore. And I feel like for most people, that's something that they're scared to admit when they feel like
and the funny thing is I could have told you that.
Yeah. And I was experimenting with things, and that's why I call you a victim of your own success, because I'm lucky that I thought about it, I explored it, I tried it, and then I wasn't successful. And so when I realized that I actually know, it wasn't just realizing that I don't want to do that. It was more so I realized what I really want to do and what I really want to
Right.
focus on.
But see,
So
but
it was easy to let that go because I wasn't already I didn't have staff. I didn't
by
have
reaching out for help, you
Yeah.
saved yourself from making some costly mistakes because you were ready to swan dive into some shit.
Yeah.
Half cocked, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, I look at a lot of what I do, and it's probably a lot of the reason that it's exhausting me is that I'm effectively a therapist for businesses. Like, that's all this really is like at one stage of it, you're almost like a babysitter or a teacher. And then as the businesses grow, you're like the therapist. So it's like you take on so much of like the stresses of operating a business that's not even yours, because you have to be empathetic for these people, and like it just sucks the life out of you. And like I feel like over the last few years of me doing that, like I've heard so much, but I'm neglecting my own like journey down that realm. Like I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I've stopped all but being an entrepreneur to help other people when it's time for me to get back onto that ride myself. So
what would your advice be, because here's the thing is I felt a little embarrassed when I created a logo. Like I had this whole thing, and it wasn't that I was going down.
When you said you had a logo, it was the first thing I did was roll my eyes, right?
And I do think you should dive in if you're gonna try something. Like put effort into it. Like don't half-ass it, right? But at the same time, I think that's where some guys run into trouble as well, is by then diving in, they're afraid to dive back out because they're in deep. They got in deeper, and then they're afraid to dive back out. And so dive in. I think that's difficult for people though, right? So what would your advice be when you dive in? You realize, shit, this water is cold. I'm not enjoying this. How do you find that courage to say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm gonna move on because I need to find what works for me. And I realized with the conversation me and you had, like it's a recruiting company that I thought, because I'm good at recruiting, that's my main job. But then I realized I'm good at it, but I don't love it enough to stay up and like do it past when I need to do it. You know, I'm doing it because I'm good at it and I get paid for it. But I'm not going to recruit if somebody wasn't paying
Right.
me to recruit. I wouldn't be recruiting.
Right.
And so that's what I realized. Like I don't actually have a legitimate passion, so I decided to take my foot out of that water.
I mean, I think everyone can be introduced to their passion, but you have to find yourself crossing paths with it. I think that's really the key. I mean, you know, I've made my whole adult life is powered by the fact that as a kid I played with radio controlled cars. Like, but the only reason I did that was because there was a hobby shop down the street from my house. You know what I mean? So it's just like I just happened to come in contact with that thing. And you know, some people are lucky enough to, and others, you know, maybe they find it in a different time in their life, or maybe they're not able to leverage it in the ways that some others could. But um, you know, when it comes to like entrepreneurship, since that's my thing, and for people with whether you consider yourself a full blown entrepreneur or you just got a side hustle, you know, I always kind of describe it to people like you're jumping into a fire pit, and your business is your protective armor, and that's only going to protect you from those flames as good as that product, that suit of armor is protecting you. Like that's as good as it's going to get. And at some point, even the best business, the best idea, the best suit is going to burn through, and you have to know when to jump out.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasons that you jump out are, you know, vary based on what you're doing, but there's always a time, and it's scary to jump out a lot of times because you don't want to jump out too soon. You know, maybe you had more time, or you don't want to do too late, obviously, because then you'll just be completely consumed, and that can happen, you know, emotionally or financially usually, which then, you know, spirals into all the other things. So for me, I just feel like I feel my suit starting to burn through. It's getting a little toasty. I worry that maybe it's too soon, but I'm also feeling more like there's more value to me by not waiting to find out.
Yeah. No, I get it. You know, Nate mentioned in the chat, by the way, that he wanted to be an archaeologist, or he wanted to be Indiana Jones, but then he realized it wasn't to be an archaeologist. He just wanted to kill Nazis. Then he wanted to be a filmmaker, but he didn't want to move to NYC or LA. So, you know, I do think you hit on something that's important, which is and by the way, I want to say, you know, I am proud of the courage that it takes for you to recognize that, especially when you're balls deep into something. And I do think that there are a vast majority of men out there who are doing the things that they do for a very long time out of honestly pure stubbornness, and you know, they're just gonna stick with it and deal with the shit, and
Or you just don't want to be viewed as giving up. Like,
they don't want to be viewed as giving up. They hate every day, but they're gonna get up and keep doing it every day. Only reason I got to the point where I can let things go is because I had two choices: either learn to forge my own path or kill myself, and I refused to do that because I was so miserable every day that I wanted to kill myself, and I had no other choice. But there are a lot of stronger men out there than me who don't get that extreme, and therefore they can just deal with it for longer.
But before I have to run, I want to tell just a tiny little short story to make sense why this is so significant right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. So once upon a time, right after I graduated from college in about 2010, I think it's been a long time now, 2010-ish. I was just out there in the world working, you know, just working random little bullshit hourly jobs. Did retail, whole deal. Anyway, I'm a terrible employee. So one way or another, I lost job after job after job in probably a 2 to 3 year period. The last regular job that I had was working for a commercial real estate company doing marketing. And some stuff happened financially with that company that I ended up getting laid off. It's actually a terrible story that really pissed you off, but we don't have time for that. So anyway, I get laid off.
That's how I got to know you, actually, because that's when you started your YouTube channel. Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I'll never forget the walk out of that building to my car. I'll never forget. I remember it like it happened yesterday, and just thinking, and I just bought the car like a week before, and just like, here we go again. Something has got to give. I can't keep living my life like this. I can be broke on my own. I might as well do what I want to do and work for myself. That was like the literal turning point in my life, that 30-second walk from the doors of that job to my car. And the decision that I need to make to kind of let things go right now is as significant as that day. Because this is me coming to that point again. It's like, I can't move forward like this. Something's got to give. I have to take my life back. I can be broke without this. And it's making kind of difficult, but I mean, it's just going to be, it's the kind of thing where I'm excited for my family, quite frankly, because I just feel like just more and more every year, I'm just like losing, like, quite frankly, like the things that my wife probably liked about me in the first place when she met me, because I'm so
And as men, we get caught up in, the provider narrative and
right.
The career man narrative and all of that, but we don't even realize that we're doing worse by them in the long run a lot of times.
And like,
there are a lot of men out there who are abusive and angry and these toxic things at home, but what I don't think society touches on is they are that way in many, many cases because they are trying too hard to do what they think is the right thing.
Right.
Which is
and like one of my big issues is totally in my head, because for the longest time, my wife's a scientist. We'll just put it that way. So she's always been the breadwinner, but just recently, I started making more money than her. Like in the last year, maybe a year or so, I started making more money than her. And like in my head, I felt like just what a turnaround. That at least, even though we're basically 50-50, and it is what it is, that, at least I felt like I was contributing, I had the bigger sack that I was throwing down on the table.
And I know my assumption, but is she bothered by the fact that you make more than her now?
No.
And again, that was my assumption, and I think that's again a difference between the genders, where most women probably wouldn't be bothered by that if the roles were reversed as far as the switching.
Yeah, no, we don't have like that kind of dynamic. It's just one of those things where it's just like, for me, and especially now having a child, like it just made me feel good, because we don't have the most traditional thing, but like I mean, it's probably safer to say that I'm like the leader of the household. So it just made me feel better in that regard. But
did you still feel like the leader even without being the financial leader necessarily? Like and what I mean by financial leader is making the most money. But did you still feel like you were the head of household even when you were making less financially? The reason for that question.
No. Well, okay. Sort of. Well, okay, so it's complicated.
Because I do think men tend to think that men want to be, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, two heterosexual, a man and a woman, I don't care if this is controversial, in general, women tend to want men who are the leader, who are the head of the household, and men tend to want to be the leader and the head of the household. And I think a lot of men suffer because if they don't make more than their spouse, significant other financially, then they feel like they aren't the head of the household. But a realization I came to is you can be the leader and the head of the household. It doesn't matter if you make more money.
Right.
Money is not the deciding factor on whether or not you're the leader of that family. You know what I mean?
Not, but life runs on money.
It does, and modern life does. And that's where that misconception came from. And it's where a lot of men think that they're leaders because falsely, because they make money.
If I can step in just for a second, I do think that a lot of that also comes from who pays for things. So if the breadwinner is the person who paid for the house, who pays for the food, who pays for the kids' clothes, you know, all of that stuff, I think it can lead to feeling like you have more say because you're the one supplying everything.
Yeah, well, again, and I think that that's because we're in
male or female.
That's because we're in a society that confuses financial things, finances with, you know, those kinds of values on leadership and what it really means to truly lead. Here's the opinion that I came to, and the perspective that I came to is you can be a man and be a leader who makes less. I'm a leader to people who are above me in my current company. I'm a leader to them. They look to me for guidance as a leader, because what I realized is it's not about the job title. It's not about what your fucking salary is. It's who's the person that everybody turns to when shit hits the fan. Who's the person that people turn to when nobody knows the right answer and they need to understand what next step.
Right, but isn't
I have bosses who come to me and they won't say it
though?
plainly, but like, oh fuck, like call John.
But isn't home different though? Like, how many problems that come up, like real problems that don't have something to do with money or can't be fixed with money?
They do, absolutely. Well, and yeah, that's where we're stuck in this society where money does fix a lot of things, right? And it doesn't, it's not actual, like, if we needed a house, you know, 200, 300, however many years ago, like, it wasn't about who had more money. It was about who's going to go out and actually fucking nail the wood together and
Right.
build the house. Now, you know, if you made money doing something, you know, that's not directly related to building a house, you can still be the one who technically builds the house, which, by the way, you didn't build the house. The contractors and plumbers and construction workers out there actually built the fucking house. That said, I think in modern society, you can still be the leader, even though you make less money in the relationship, by being, especially as a man, by being the protector, by being the sense of safety for your family.
I don't know. I just think no matter what, like, I think when you're being like objective about it, I think the dynamic will always be different. Like, it's always going to lean. The scale is always going to lean in one direction or the other, I think.
I do have an example.
Tiebreaker is always going to be financial. Like, I think no matter what.
I think you're right that does end up being the case, but I have a personal example. Like, this experience comes from personal example for me. When you talked about your story when you left your job, and you know, around that time that we met, and I did that earlier this year. I was at the same place. I can't do this anymore. I was at a wall. I wanted to kill myself every day, and I couldn't take it anymore. Going to work and feeling abused and fucking like I could never be myself, never speak my mind. I got to that point and I gave up and I quit. And I was unemployed for 6 months, 8 months. And I was broke. I was broke as a joke. And I had my girlfriend was with me and she had a job and she paid for everything financially through that time. And I can tell you personally, I was still the leader in that relationship the entire time, because when something came up, when it was, yeah, she had the money, but when the question was, well, what do we do with this money? What thing does this money go towards? What priorities do we, you know, address? You know, how do we approach this situation? Because yeah, she was making money and I wasn't, but we still had to make certain decisions. I was the decision maker. And not because I forced myself, but because.
But still, eventually, there's a wall that you're going to run up against. And the reason is going to be because you didn't make this money. No, you're not going to, like, even on something like I don't know. You're not going to go out and buy a motorcycle tomorrow, unemployed, with her money.
I'm not saying that can't happen, but I am saying that if somebody uses that as a reason to diminish you, that's
no. I don't think it's even a diminishing. Like, I think it could just be on like a philosophical disagreement about how to deal with finances, where they're just like, I'm not okay with this, and guess what? You didn't contribute to this pot, so
exactly. And if you're in a relationship, that's what I'm saying. Where, in my opinion, if you're in a relationship with somebody who says, hey, you didn't contribute to this pot, therefore your opinion matters less, that's somebody you shouldn't be in a relationship with, or that.
I don't agree with that, man. I don't agree with that.
Yeah. No, I do.
No, I don't. I have a fundamental disagreement with that.
What part?
If you are not contributing, or at least putting effort into contributing.
Let's be clear on something. Not contributing financially, not contributing.
Right? Yeah. I'm right there.
There's a difference between you're not contributing as much financially and you're not contributing to this relationship.
I'm only talking about the money.
Yeah. So what you just said is talking about, but what you just said, Jesse, you said if you're not contributing.
Let me clarify. If you're not contributing to the bank account.
But that's what I'm saying. You can be contributing to a relationship. So this person A could be contributing financially at this level, and I'm at this level, but I could be contributing in a different way to the relationship on this level. And it's the same argument that we used to have about why women deserved more respect, because men used to use this against women where, oh, I make all the money, therefore my opinion holds more value, but the woman's at home taking care of the kids, folding the clothes, cleaning the house, and cooking the food. So just because
why don't we get a good fight going right now?
This is a fight.
Why are we?
There we go. Don't fucking claim that just because you're not at the higher level financially that the other person isn't contributing, even if they're not making money. There's other ways.
There are a lot of variables.
Not to say that there aren't pieces of shit out there who don't make money and also don't contribute in any other way either. Those are the pieces of shit who are just sitting on the couch playing video games all day while their significant other don't.
Like, what I'm saying is, like, okay, like me and my wife, like, since we're contributing relatively evenly into our finances, if my wife wanted to go tomorrow and say, I want to buy a new car, then I was like, I grind my teeth, but it's like, well, I mean, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. We're going to figure this out.
I think that should be a conversation no matter what.
But if let's say it was shifted, and let's say she was maybe contributing only a quarter of that income. Like, let's not even say not at all. Okay, let's a quarter of it, and you'd say, okay, well, I would have to look at it and say, well, maybe the cost of this new car is more than you make in a whole year. Why are we going to spend mostly my money on this thing for you? Like, and then I would be pretty justified, I think, in Jesse's opinion, that if I were to say no, that I would be totally within my rights to say no.
I say this as somebody who has bought 2 cars for somebody who was not working. I will never, ever, ever, ever do that again. Ever.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong. You had a bad experience. I don't think you're wrong. But bad experiences with bad people who take advantage of things does not mean that the inherent moral of what's right go out the window.
I just think the person who is the breadwinner is the one that gets to say no.
I can't agree with that.
I have to admit, I just think both parents should be working.
Well, there's that, yeah.
No, I also disagree. But
no, but think about like let's not even talk about.
I think that's actually the problem with modern society is that both parents work. That's one of the biggest problems we have with society is that both parents work. Yes, because
stay at home here. Like, we're not talking about like
the elementary school system and the public school system to babysit our children when they should be being raised by their family, but we can't afford it anymore because you can't get by.
We're working with the system we're in.
Exactly.
So
that doesn't
in the
make it
system
right.
that we're in, both parents should be working.
Yeah, both parents have to now.
But
Not
even
should.
Not necessarily.
no, but
in,
here's the thing:
in the
even
vast
in a
majority of
home,
cases.
even with a stay-at-home parent, the only reason I say that's different is because I think in that situation, an agreement has been made that that changes that dynamic willingly and agreed upon between those two parties, to where their job is taking care of the home and whatever they do with kids and all that kind of stuff, that that person, for lack of better words, works for that family. You know what I mean? Like that is their profession. So to me, then those finances just automatically become that communal property anyway. Like, I really think that's the only real difference there. But
Because
I
it
mean,
was already agreed upon.
It's
Both
agreed
parties.
upon.
I think the number of relationships with kids that are out there with that they chose to either both be working or have one working and one stay at home, that it was even a choice at the end of the day, is fucking less than 5% of the population. Most dual income homes are dual income homes because
Depends on where you are, man.
dual income home,
It depends on where you are.
Home.
Come down here to Georgia, that shit is common.
Exactly. There are, and that's why I said 5%, right? There
are
are areas of the country and
segments
of the population where that's not the case. But guess what? You try and be a single family, a one parent working family in New York or fucking Austin or Seattle or the majority of other, modern U.S. cities. Good fucking luck.
Yeah, but does the culture of those places support that lifestyle though in general? Probably not. I think.
No. Of course
not. I mean,
but guess what? If you born in fucking New York, what are you gonna do? Just fucking pick up, go to Georgia?
No, but I think it's just the culture has to make those things happen. Like it's
it's a society. Yeah, it's a societal. That's my point. Is this is a social thing where you're forced into it.
No, but like okay, let's say Georgia, for example, where that something like that's going to be a lot more common. Mm-hmm. Everything about Georgia fits so that you could live that lifestyle and be okay. Like down to even the things available to consumers and the price points that they're available. Mm-hmm. The density of housing, the location of housing and population centers, like the culture of this region has dictated what the society looks like and how it works and how it's priced. Mm-hmm. When it comes to those other places, that culture doesn't celebrate that lifestyle. That culture doesn't support that lifestyle. So that's why you see everything.
I do get your point. I do get your point. But I think the culture adapts to the situation, not vice versa. The culture celebrates the lifestyle that is fucking the option. Like I think that if you could afford a single family home in most parts of this fucking country, most couples would choose to have, the mom would choose to stay home with the kids so that the dad could keep a roof over their heads. And if their local situation allowed that on a reasonable level, then that's what they would choose.
So you're saying that most people would want it that way by default?
Most people would want it that way by default. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, I guess
I can't tell you the number of women I've seen say, holy shit, I wish I just had a dude who could fucking afford to keep this roof over my head.
Screw dude, I want a sugar mama. I just want to stay home.
Yeah. But they're forced into it because there was a minority that wanted to be on an equal footing with men. And I'm not saying that this is wrong or anything, but then that drove society to the point where now it's not as much an option. It's a necessity in way more cases.
But I feel like that's just based on your particular sample.
Which, by the way, I am going to put up there that somebody called me correct, but I'll leave it alone.
I mean,
I'm sure that was.
I hear you. I get it, but I'm almost inclined. I'm almost inclined to call that a bit of a stereotype, to be honest.
Well, you know what? Here's another thing that a lot of people want to admit. Most stereotypes are based in some form of reality.
I mean, I guess. I mean,
I think John is right that if
fucking hell, I got two. I'm right.
If most families could support just one parent working and the other parent staying at home, I do think there is a massive amount of families that would choose that.
Okay, I'm gonna. God,
I have to say, I wouldn't be one of those. If I'm being honest, I would rather both parents still working because we can make that money
and that's where that drive comes from. That's where it comes from exactly, is because when any family where both parents are working is an option, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, then by default, they're automatically going to be able to achieve more when it comes to material things.
But when I could support for my kids,
then any family that
can provide a more stable life.
That's where that drive to do it comes from. Is like, okay, I would be happy with me working and my spouse not working. Well, shit, every other family on the block chose to both of them work. Well, now their house is 3 times. Every other house on the block is 3 times bigger than ours. Well, fuck. I'm forced into that choice now if I want that bigger house. So you have to, that's the thing too. You have to make a decision to know that if you're gonna make that choice, it means you're gonna, by default, have less than a family that chooses for both partners to work. And Robert, you were gonna say that, I think you were gonna be controversial. So I want to get back to it because I love that shit. Let's be controversial. Let's go viral.
Okay, and I apologize if this applies to anybody. This is just my own thought, like my own preferences. You do you. I think a partner, I'm not going to say a woman because that's not what it is, a partner who isn't ambitious, like from a career standpoint, is like so unattractive to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ugh, like I can't stand when like I meet like people that
so I was so with your statement up until the last like 2% of it.
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
So no, I agree with you too.
Hold on, let me finish. I'm not quite done though.
Why does ambition have to be towards a career? Like, I don't want a partner who isn't ambitious either. But
because I'm gonna tell you why. And me and my wife are very similar in this way. That like I and she looked at the partnership.
I'm throwing up there, by the way. You got somebody on your side.
Yeah, see, they know I'm right. the partnership.
It's the same person.
If nothing else, like for the good, bad, and ugly with me and my wife, we are excellent partners. And if nothing else, if you strip away everything in our relationship, we are 2 people that live exceptionally well together and work together as a unit. And I say that because that seems to be the thing that people look at last in relationships too much. And I think, the difference between people that stay together for, we'll give them 20 years, and those people that are together for like 90 years, those little old people, is that they are a good unit. And I think being that ambitious person, being that career driven person makes you a better partner because you're the contribution into like your finances and the things that drive life is a priority for you. And like for me, when I was kind of wavering in that department, seeing how my wife is really pushed me. So the thing is like that ambition keeps me in check. It's like we keep each other. It's like the challenging each other, and that benefits our family as a whole. So it's just kind of like when you have a person, not to say that if you stay at home that you're not ambitious or less than or anything like that. That is a lifestyle choice, and it's just not for me. But it works for a lot of people, and they get everything they want in life.
Acknowledge though that it's the need to be ambitious.
right.
to have an ambitious partner. But again,
but
I agree with you.
Even when I look at like people that are stay-at-home parents, that is a commitment. Like you have committed to getting a lot of shit right when you are a stay-at-home parent or like homeschooling kids. Like you've taken on a lot.
Well, it's also, isn't it at the end of the day a value thing too? And I'm not saying this to say that it's not okay to value things that you need money for, but there are people out there who don't value those things. Like I know miserable people driving luxury cars, and I know happy people driving beaters, right?
And it's not even necessarily about the dollar amount though, because like I'd say maybe about a year or so ago, me and my wife were just kind of in the car, and then we just got in this conversation with each other about, so you looking to like get a promotion or anytime soon? What are you doing? You've been doing the same thing for a long time.
Which I think is fair because it's about ambition. But again, so you can have ambition, but your values are raising children. And therefore, your ambition is not about your next promotion. It's about whether or not your kid gets into that fucking academy that takes a certain SAT score. Or you know what I mean? Or you could have value about your yard and your home. And okay, what are you doing? Are you ambitious enough that our home is designed and it's decorated for every season? You know, it's fall and all of a sudden I've got fucking decorations up. And I've been in a relationship like this where her values are and I loved it. And I was making a lot more, but she brought value as well, but she had ambition to the point where every season we had decorations up that were like specific to that fucking season. And she wanted to outdo any other version. So I feel you on the ambition part, but I do think that it doesn't have to be financial because it depends on what your values are. That's my opinion.
Yes, I mean that's fair. I mean that's not unfair. I mean there's not. I don't think there's a right wrong here. I think that's just like a different side of the coin. Maybe it's not a coin. Maybe it's one of those like Dungeons and Dragons like 55-sided die things.
It's a 20-sided die. That's what it is. Yeah.
No, I agree.
It's a conflict in values. Basically, it's all this is. We fall in different pots on the value spectrum. And none of us are necessarily wrong. None of us are necessarily right.
No, I do agree with that. Yeah, none of us are necessarily wrong. None of us are necessarily right. But what I will tell you, I think is right, is that we have these conversations. Is because that's the problem that I think though, is that we don't discuss these things and talk about these things. In general,
I have to admit one thing. I do appreciate being the breadwinner.
Most men.
It is. I know it is a social construct or whatever you want to call it, but I appreciate being the breadwinner.
As do I.
I know that I'm also the one that is the family protector. I'm the grizzly bear of the family. And I appreciate that is my role. I own it and I want it.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's like just being proud of your family. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
Well, and it's also the only way to. So where that comes from, in my opinion, is from the need or the internal need and desire as a man to feel like the provider, which I think is instinctual. Like that, it's evolutionary to want that. But in modern society, the only way to get that same satisfaction that you're talking about is through being the financial breadwinner. That wasn't always the case. Being the provider didn't always mean money. It meant who brought home the fresh kill, who put the roof over the head, who built the shelter, right? And so now that's where the problem is that men lack avenues to get that feeling that, for a man who is in a situation where he can't be the financial breadwinner, what other way is he left to feel like he's the provider of the home? We don't have as many, and that's why there are a lot of men out there who are unsatisfied, because we do have an internal drive to be the provider and the protector. And if you have a GED and your spouse has a doctorate, and makes 5 times the money that you do, you're gonna spend a lot of time feeling useless and pointless.
Then you got like, what about families where like there's a huge delta between like each partner and their finances? Like that's a totally different thing altogether too.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of the problems come in. And me and Rob, we talked about this actually on one of our recent episodes. That's why my marriage had lasted as long as it did. And I don't know what it's like. Actually, you are the expert on what it's like to be married later in life when financial situations are, coming together after being developed for years.
Oh, no, not me. That ain't me. That is not me.
What I mean by financial situations is whatever your situation is. Like where you were, you guys you are an exception where you chose to bring your finances. Most modern couples, if this dude makes this much and this other person makes this much and they get together in their mid-30s after they've built a career, they usually do keep separate money. You're actually an exception where you were against that, and we had that conversation.
Oh yeah, I would never.
But I think that old school relationships, you both started off broke, and so there was no my money, there was our money.
Yeah, and the way my girlfriend and I do it, we have separate bank accounts, but then we also have a joint account. We have a joint checking and a joint savings, but then we also have our separate money that our paychecks are actually deposited into. And then we just funnel money to our joint.
That's honestly better than even some modern relationships that don't even, they're just like, no, this is my money, that's your money. But the idea that you're going to enter into a marriage, like, why are you getting married? Like the prenup thing. I remember when that, when I learned about that, like, well, why the fuck are you even getting married? Unless your answer is tax benefits. Like, okay, well, then we're talking about something that makes sense. But like,
there's no right way to do it, though. It's all about how the couple agrees to do it.
I disagree. I think that's why the divorce rate is through the roof. Because there is a wrong way to do it.
Consenting adults agree
to get married. You should be accepting that. That means that we are a unit on everything.
I mean, I agree, but some people just keep that air gap between between their spouses. I don't get it. I mean, me and my wife threw our finances together probably earlier than we should have, and it's been that way ever since. But I don't know. It was always.
I do want to ask Nate. Nate mentioned that he says, I think a good 50-50 prenup is amazing. I want to hear from both of y'all, and then Nate, I'll give you some time to type
a prenup is amazing if you actually have money.
Why even get married though?
That's
my thing.
I have no problem with the prenup.
I don't have a problem with it necessarily either, but then I don't understand the drive to get married.
Because all a prenup is you're just predefining the terms of your divorce.
Exactly,
so
which
you're expecting to get divorced.
Which is antithetical to the idea of marriage in the first.
But
so here's the thing: is you're telling me why get a prenup? I'm asking you why get married.
Because I'm about to tell you the reason I'm so okay with this is because I'm in business, and the legal marriage is nothing more than a business contract between two consenting adults.
So you're talking about it from a business perspective. That's your reason for getting married.
No. I'm saying the prenup. A marriage is one of the only contracts that you can go into that doesn't automatically define the terms for breaking that contract. You look at any other contract, there are terms of here's what party A is going to provide. Here's what party B is going to provide. This is how we're going to do it. And if somebody doesn't do it, here's what's going to happen. Any contract is set up that way, except a marriage.
Because a marriage...
Because a marriage is not a legal contract.
You're not answering my question, though. Why get married?
Because all it is it's not
normal, describing it. Why get married?
Prenup is something that should be a normal part of any contract.
Not the prenup. You're still not answering the question.
Why get married? I'm getting there. You're not letting me finish.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
When I make an operating agreement for two entrepreneurs that are partnering together, the language and everything that they're bound to each other by looks almost identical to a marriage. The only difference is that every operating agreement has a prenup, or terms of termination, that if you don't lead up to, if you don't, blah, 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 do whatever, or if we decide to split, this happens, this belongs to this person, or we're going to take the value of these things and split these things up and sell it. It's all the same. It's just a contract between two people. And if you talk about, like, if something does happen to a relationship and having things come out where they're fair, a prenup is the way to do it, because this is when people can agree to things while they're on good terms. And while you still feel good about this other person, so that they end up being treated right. Like, the things you hear about these nightmare scenarios with prenups, that's not real life. Like, most of the time, it's just like, okay, we're going to take everything that we own, sell it, and then we're going to divide the money. Or, hey, the house stays with you, and if we have any kids, they'll stay with you, or we'll split this up. Like, that's all you're doing is pre-dividing that stuff. That having to take a look at what would happen if you divide is not something to compel you to not do it.
Okay. You still haven't answered the question.
How have I not answered the question?
Because you talked about why you were talking about why you should get a prenup. My question again was, well, why get married?
Because why would you not get married just because you're going to define what it looks like if the two of you break your contract?
Am I losing my fucking mind?
I think you are.
Yeah, you just questioned my question. Just answered the question on why get married.
Because you think it's going to work out. You love each other.
No. What's the actual reason to get married in the first place then?
What?
Well, I mean, I feel like you're getting into the whole marriage is outdated.
What is your reason for getting married?
Tax reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, the base,
which I think is a fair answer, but that's my question. What's your reason to get married? If your answer is for the tax benefits,
okay,
and this is a financial thing, and it's all about, it's a contract, as you call it. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the idea that marriage is a contract. So that's because of my values on what let
me address that directly then. Okay, I'm with you now. Okay, so then the why get married, right? So I think that's a case by case thing, but the purpose for adding the title to get married is about a public claiming, a public acceptance, a public formation. I'm using business terms again because it's a contract, but a public declaration of this is now one family unit, and bringing this person in as your family unit. I think that is like when you strip it all down, when you strip around all the fuzzy, the touchy-feely fuzzy stuff, that's what it is, right? And then if you're religious, then you wrap in all that and you're like, okay, well, now God has blessed this union between us as well. But in front of God and everybody else, we're going to say that we are one. So it's that.
You just hit on why I was pushing the answer to that question, which is, that would be more along the lines of my understanding of why I got married and why I think marriage is something that matters. Right,
but you can get Jesus married and not get legally married, and then those become very different.
Exactly, which is also very much along the lines, which is to what I was going to say about your other example, which is if you want to make a public declaration, why do you have to sign a fucking marriage license? And that even requires a prenup. Go to the church, stand in front of a public crowd, declare your love for each other, and you ain't got to go to the fucking office and sign it. It makes you sign a prenup.
Right. But the thing is nobody needs to get legally married. But the government,
I do think that there are some who do it for the financial benefits.
Right, but the government,
which in that case, I would thumbs up the prenup idea.
The government
doing it as a contract, as a business contract. then it makes sense to get a prenup. But if I'm
Right.
doing
You're not in the eyes of a lot of ways, you're not actually married until you are legally married.
I've literally had nobody but an employer who needs to know it for tax purposes ever ask me when I told them I was married whether or not I had a signed fucking certificate from the
Well, I mean, of course they're not. I mean, some random people are going to ask you.
If you say I'm married to this person, then you're fucking married. If I go up to, if I have a girl next to me and I come up to somebody that I just met and I said, this is my wife, they're not going to fucking look for proof from the fucking tax office.
Of course not.
Well, obviously not. But you're not talking about the same thing we're talking about, I don't think.
You're exactly right, which is why I wanted to clarify that, because I do think it's a value question on what you believe the purpose of the marriage even is to whether or not you should get a prenup. If you believe that the purpose of the marriage is it's a business style contract, then yes, a prenup makes sense because that's an addendum to a contract. But if you view marriage as in a different way, then, which is the way that I view marriage, I view marriage more along the lines of this is a covenant between God on a moral level and a commitment on a spiritual level that I am making to a person. That when I say till death do us part, I fucking mean it. And therefore, the idea of a prenup doesn't make any goddamn sense to me.
No, but you're mixing two things that don't.
I'm not mixing anything. I was just describing my side.
No, but I'm saying you're these things that like aren't mutually exclusive. You're putting them together as meaning the same thing when they don't. Like I firmly believe that if somebody just stands in front of whoever and says, do you, now you're married, then as far as I'm concerned, from here until the end of time, you're married. And I accept
so we're on the same page on that one then.
But a prenup is irrelevant because you never have any legal bond. The problem comes in because you could be potentially, you or the partner could be opening yourself up to potential issues if you guys decide to split because you never defined whose was whose. And you just end up in some wild lawsuit potentially. So what would happen is by not getting the legal marriage, you end up opening yourself up to all these potential problems.
So I think I get it. And that's
because like, what if you have kids and, you're just out here willy-nilly with no paperwork, then what happens, like, if something happens to your spouse?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's those things that would legally protect to...
And that was what I was getting at. You nailed it. I mean, you're absolutely right. So you're talking about there are legitimate legal benefits to getting married on paper through the state.
Of course, they incentivize it. And depending on who you ask, it's either, and that's depends on who you ask, whether it's incentivized for you to be married or not be married. It depends on really where you are socioeconomically. But like, it's like the prenup, I personally feel like a prenup should just be a requirement of getting married in the first place.
I think most people who end up getting the prenup, and I'm not talking about you, and I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate cases that
I don't have one. Just to be clear, I don't have one.
And I was only throwing that out there, just in general. I do think the vast majority of people who end up getting prenup, at the end of the day, they just shouldn't have got fucking married in the first place.
I don't know.
I feel like people treat marriage in a very throwaway manner these days.
I think.
Well, I mean, the divorce rate is exceptionally high.
Well, and I wasn't going to point that out, but I think the statistics back me up that people treat marriage in a very throwaway manner these days, and it's unfortunate. And I think a lot of those people would be better off stop getting married. People have this.
I feel like you've just seen too many of the ugly prenups and not like what prenups actually look like. Like it's literally.
I mean, my criticism there was more about marriage, not about prenup. I don't know anything about. I've never.
It's just like if
I'm talking about people getting married when they don't intend. they aren't getting married with the intention that marriage is supposed to be about. They're getting married because they think it's going to look cool. They're getting married because they think it's going to up their social points and their social status.
I don't
And
necessarily agree with all of that.
No,
I do think another benefit of a prenup is if you have two parties that are coming into the marriage with wildly different.
Yeah, that's my example from earlier where I don't understand. I haven't experienced that side. Yeah, you're older and you're already built a bunch.
Right, you're basically just protecting your assets in a world where divorces happen all the goddamn time now.
I'm not a woman, but if anybody ever proposed to me and then told me that I had to sign a prenup, the marriage would be off immediately.
See, but that would be a sign to me that what are you really after then?
I will say,
I'm coming into the relationship
but
with all
the
assets.
Hey, me and you are on opposite sides, and we're both divorced, so whatever. Rob, you talk to us as the only one who's still winning.
That's so backwards. That's so backward, and it's great. It's so backwards because if you have to sign a prenup, then that means you're coming into an arrangement where there are assets already. And
which I think also bites a lot of men in the ass in particular.
What it particularly does.
Women too.
By a wide margin, it's more men who ask for prenups than women
who need prenups because like I will agree. Like I will make this clear. I am not saying that don't get a prenup. I am not saying that because I can absolutely feel for the men who've come into a relationship with somebody who then contributed nothing and lost half of their hard work. What I'm saying is I guess what my point is that those men who I know those stories of shoulda, coulda, woulda not fucking married that person in the fucking first place.
I need to say one more thing about that before I actually have to go, is that the reason that all of that argument of the why get married falls apart is because the person you are when the day you get married is not the person you are 10 years from then, and another 10, and another 10. The person that got married, those two people that got married probably should have been getting married. Down the road, those might be two people that don't need to be together anymore.
Oh, all right. I'm glad you made your point. Before you leave, I'm going to make
that agreement to what it looks like if they don't need to be together anymore by the two clear-minded people that should have been together that could make the right decisions in each other's best interests is ultimately what gets to win out in the end, and that's better for everyone.
I absolutely fundamentally disagree before you leave. That's because fine. I think the point of marriage is the commitment that even if you change, that's why it says in sickness and in health, in better or for worse, that's
we're not talking about marriage, sickness and in health. We're talking about evolving as a person.
Yeah.
Like I am not the
person. Wait, hold on. Don't fucking pick out and not let me finish the entire statement.
What?
For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. There is no except for or but in there.
You're not wrong, but you're also fucking wrong.
I'm wrong by modern standards, absolutely, which is why we have a 70% divorce rate.
Because the person,
and that's why prenups exist.
Yeah, that's why we have the divorce is high, and that's because nobody means that shit. We're all up there taking vows about death till death do us part, and we don't fucking mean it.
I agree with you there. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you on that. But you know what? We'll fight in a week.
I love it. He's like, I actually don't agree with this nigga, but I agree. I'm just gonna pretend.
I agree with the last thing that you said, but that's it.
that was my. I finally, I think I got to the point where I could explain it. I guess, but that was.
I do have to go, gentlemen.
I know. I love you, buddy. Thank you for joining again. Hopefully,
we'll see you again, Jesse. I'll have more course.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, buddy. You have a great night.
Peace.
That was fun, actually.
That was fun.
Yeah.
We had 3 different perspectives.
Very different. And, I think modern society and we've gotten so bad at having tough conversations and fighting a little bit and disagreeing a little bit and still at the end saying cheers, I love you, buddy, and I'll see you next time. I wish we had more of that these days, but now it's like that whole conversation, even I feel like in the vast majority of cases in modern society would end with a, well, fuck you, you're the devil, and I'll never talk to you again. You know what I mean?
I mean, we have an advantage that we're all friends. We all get along. We all understand that we're not like bad people. We're not keyboard warriors on some random Facebook page. We're actually having the conversation as opposed to what we see generally day to day, which I think makes a very big difference in having a conflicting opinion and being able to work through it.
Well, that's the reason that you guys are guest hosts and or co-hosts, and why I've got the friends like Nate and everybody else who's part of our group, is because I don't associate with people who can't have a disagreement and then still be friendly towards each other at the end of the day and say, hey, fuck you, you're an idiot, but I love you, and we'll move on. I don't associate with those type of people, but I do think that that's more rare. That's getting more rare nowadays, where people, are less likely to get to know somebody that they disagree with for long enough to even figure out why they like that person.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I agree. That is absolutely becoming a lost art, and I do think that social media is playing a massive role in that.
Yeah. In what way? I'm curious, because I
don't think I don't think as a people we generally have these conversations like this anymore. We have it through Facebook, or we have it through Twitter, or we have it through whatever freaking social media platform, instead of actually talking to a person.
And not only talking to a person, and I do agree with you that there's a reason why I asked that question. It's not just talking to a person, but feeling driven to deal with the uncomfortable feelings that come from them not agreeing with you, right? And I think that's where social media has become a problem, is because it's so easy to find an echo chamber where everybody agrees with you that it's very easy to walk away from somebody who doesn't. And
it's also easy to be the opposite, just to be the contrarian, just for the hell of being the contrarian. And
honestly, like we've got our own contrarian as a part of this group, Joe Panarese. I don't know why I love contrarian someone. I don't know. I at least respect them more than the people who only seek out connections with people who agree with them on everything. I can't stand that. And contrarians are like the opposite end of that extreme, and I don't know. I guess I just kind of appreciate that, because the majority of people, it seems like, in modern society just want to find their echo chamber where everybody fucking agrees with them, and they never have to feel uncomfortable, and they never have to feel challenged, and they never.
I mean, that relates kind of tangentially to what we talked about earlier, where it's just easier to deal with people who agree with you. That's the easy path.
Yeah, it's the super easy path, which is why you end up stupid. Those people who choose that path end up being ignorant, and spout ignorance, because they never have had to spend the time considering their own beliefs and their own arguments, because you're only forced to do that if you have conversations with people who you disagree with and who challenge you and who point out, just like Robert did and just like you did, like, wait, no, here's why I think what you said is stupid, right? And then you have to defend it, and you have to defend your point. You have to defend your argument. That's a good thing, but you're right. That is the harder path to choose. It's uncomfortable.
I think the other benefit we get by actually talking about things is that on social media, everything is always black and white. It's either this opinion or this opinion, and there's no middle ground. Whereas when we, like the discussion we just had, there are two extremes to those answers that we both could have dug our heels in and, you know, rah to. But there is a lot of gray area in that discussion.
Well, that gray area too is where, that's again where these echo chambers are formed, is because it's so easy to like throw out exceptions to rules, right? Like, well, oh, you said this thing that's true for 95% of people or 99% of people. But here's the one example of where you're wrong. So, haha, bye. Like, you're an idiot. Right? And that's why I'm careful now to like point out, and Nate actually just said it in the chat. I'll go ahead and share it here. He said, did you just invent nuance? Right? Exactly, Nate. Like, we fucking lost.
I did just invent nuance. That never existed.
Ladies and gentlemen, and by gentlemen, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I mean one gentleman who must but yeah, we've lost. But and here's the thing too, when I say we've lost the idea of nuance, again, it's a social thing. We're driven to, because it's so easy to find an echo chamber in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's so easy to avoid. It's so easy to find an echo chamber and avoid being challenged on anything. That why, I mean, looking at it from a self-serving perspective, why would you choose feeling uncomfortable? Like, why would you choose it? Right? Like, and that's where a lot of people are left. Like, they would much rather choose, and it makes sense why they would rather choose to go just fucking be in their little social group of 100 people who completely agree with them and are going to clap them up and they're going to like their comments and they're going to back up everything they fucking say. It makes sense, especially
they feel validated.
Yeah, it makes sense why younger, dumber people would choose that. I don't mean to say dumber even.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I know plenty of older people that are like that also.
And I even did it at certain less wise people, I guess I would say, is more so what I meant to say. But really, the wise choice at the end of the day is to surround yourself with people who don't agree with everything that you have to say.
I do think that it is important to surround yourself with people that do have some like thoughts and interests, though, because if you surround yourself with exclusively people that challenge you, then you'll probably feel defeated a lot.
It's funny, we were just talking about marriage. I think, yeah, exactly. You just hit that nuance or that balance that also applies to like marriage, right? Like, you, with friendships and social circles, everybody who's on this call, this group, the people that I'm friends with, Nate, you know, you guys all have disagreements with me on like political, social opinions and stuff. The reason why you're all my friends is because, yes, we all do still though have this like core moral agreement where I can tell you guys are good guys, or what I would consider good guys, good people, on that deep moral sense. And the same goes for like marriage that we were talking about, where that's important in a marriage. It's not important whether or not you guys agree on like this superficial level shit. You got to get down to like the real moral kind of shit. Like, does it matter to you to be kind? Like, does it matter to you that whether or not we agree on what it means to take care of people, is your intention that you want the best for people or not, right? I can't be whether you're left or right, I can't be friends with you if you don't think at your core that people deserve the best that we can give them, right? How we give them the best, that's where we can disagree. But that core level of whether or not you give a shit about people and being kind, and
it's funny. Yeah. It's funny because a very prime example of what we're talking about, at least I feel like it is an aunt and uncle that I have. Mm-hmm. They have basically self-sequestered themselves because the rest of the family judged them politically. And so because of that, they don't go to any of the family events. They don't attend. They're not in contact with anybody. They're off on their own island now, which is sad in my opinion, because frankly, they are the two nicest people in my family. Like my uncle would take his own shirt off if you needed it and give it to you. Those kinds of people. But because they had outlandish political views,
and they don't know how to turn it off. That's right. Another thing is some people just they've lost the ability to like turn that off. Like,
but the thing is that if we just didn't talk about politics, everybody would get along. Everybody would get along.
Well, there's this idea now that if I can't talk about politics with you, or if I have to shut down that conversation, then I shouldn't have a relationship with you at all. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think I can talk politics with most of my current friends in life, but I do have, and I have had some relationships where I love you, but yeah, when we come around each other, let's not talk politics. And I'll still love you from then on. And again, there's the aunt and uncle that you're describing. They sound like, for as good of people as they might be in other ways, they've lost that ability to just be like, you know what? Let's just not fucking talk about it because you're going to piss me off.
It goes both ways. It's not just them. It's the rest of my family also can't not talk about it. So every fucking family event, politics comes up in some fashion. Most of the family agrees. And then there would be these two.
Yeah, and I get it from their perspective now too, where there's old wisdom that says like don't talk religion and politics among people that you aren't comfortable or that you can have those conversations with. And so yes, I do think too more families should shut the fuck up about that shit.
Yeah, agreed. Just shut the fuck up about it.
Like honestly, I've had that too with family gatherings and shit. Like during the holidays back when I was younger, like why the fuck are you even bringing that up? It's Christmas.
And we already know who's going to agree, who's not going to agree. So is it just to have an echo chamber?
Yeah, it's just to like, I don't know, fucking pound your chest or something. Yeah, just shut the fuck up. Yeah. Like I love political conversations, but if I run into somebody that I can't have those conversations with, or where it's going to make things uncomfortable or ruin the relationship, like learn to shut the fuck up. I won't name names, but we both know certain people, mutual internet friends, who I loved them, but they could not ever shut the fuck up about politics. Seriously.
It was like compulsive.
It was compulsive. Like I could make the most innocuous post about some shit about, something I bought from the grocery store, and all of a sudden I'm getting a fucking rant about how such and such candidate ruined the fucking world, and that's why my hot dog cost $2.
But I think, just to go on a little mini rant here, and this is 100% a fault of both sides of the aisle, is that I think it is incredible how only one party can be at fault for everything. It is like there's this one candidate that is the cause of literally all the problems in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that it's just one of those things where the pendulum swings. It's been the case for both sides. It's been the case for both sides. It's just
both sides still do it today. Like
social control, like swings back and forth. Like the 70s were all free love, hippies, and all of that, and then eventually culture switched. Jimmy Carter became a pariah and a joke, and then it was the Nixon years, and all of a sudden, more conservative, right-leaning things were socially acceptable or the lead, and those things, it takes a while. So right now, yeah, we're just in this we've been in like the extreme end of a pendulum swing, and I do think if you look at things in a more long-term perspective, it's eventually gonna, like, who knows, it's funny to say this, but like, if you know anything about the 1920s, we're in the 20s right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who knows what the 30s are going to be? Who knows what the 40s are going to be? It could be super fucking conservative, like very fucking conservative.
It could be.
It could be. That's how it happened in the 19th century. And people have this recency bias where they think that the way it is now is, you know, the way it's always going to be. Like, no, in the 20s,
no, Democrats used to be Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, like how it flipped when it comes to racial issues back then. Or, like I said, in the 1920s, like it was the swinging 20s, and you know the economy was booming, and it was, you know, everybody at the bar and having fun, and then all of a sudden the economy dips, and I can't remember which came first. Prohibition goes into place, and then nobody can drink, and then everybody's now they're doing it underground, and gangster culture came up. Like, again, I think people just don't remember the history of how culture changes, you know. And yeah, sometimes it gets very fucking left, and sometimes it gets very fucking right. I hope we get to enjoy some version of the middle soon. That's my thing. Some version closer to the middle, because I'm a person where I do think that, and again, by example of the group that we have, I won't point out anybody's political leaning specifically. Besides,
I do think you and I both fall in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, we do, and there are a few others on our call who do, but we've got some who fall very much closer to the right and very much closer to the left. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, even
though middle left,
none of them I would call extreme though. Like, those are the ones that I can't deal with. I can't deal with you.
I agree. The extremists on both sides are just no.
Because by definition, if you're on the extreme of either side, that means you don't care about rationality or logic.
You're probably wrong.
Yeah, you're probably a sports fan. No offense. No offense, Jesse.
Hey, talk about relationship ending issues. Both couple supporting rival teams. That will be the death of a marriage.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. I don't have any relation, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you can be a PlayStation fan and an
Xbox
fan, and they can come together in marriage and on each other's arms. I'm going to let you go. I know it's late for you, buddy. I love these conversations. I do want to touch on a few more things. We ain't got nobody who's going to make it this fucking long. We did have some fun engagement though tonight. I did want to talk about, and I'm going to tag the people who I'm talking about in this section. I'm going to do you a favor. I'm not going to make you sit through the entire 3 hours to figure out where I answered your question. I will put in there at what time frame I answered your question. But we did have.
Which question are you even referring to?
I asked in the group earlier today, in the private men's group, which, again, if you happen to find us on any other platform, check the description. Except for I'm not going to put it in the description on Twitch. Go to either YouTube or Facebook and search for One More Light and Guys Night. And I will go ahead and share in the description on YouTube that I asked in our private men's group, what kinds of New Year's resolution will you be making? And it was a poll that I did. And so, like I said, I'll put that in the description.
I don't think I ever answered that.
What's that?
Said I don't think I ever answered that, and I don't need.
You did actually.
Did I?
Yeah, you did actually. I've got it right in here because I was gonna read it off because you were a dick actually.
You was?
Yeah, because I made a poll where you could add an answer, and you were the one who added this answer because you were being a dick.
I didn't do it because I was being a dick. I don't do them.
Okay, so now you know what I'm talking about.
I thought you meant I made a comment or something like.
Well, all right. I would take you adding a poll option as a comment. That's at least commentary, is it not?
Yeah, I have tried to do them and they always fail within a week, so now I just don't do them. Basically.
Well, I think you just need to set better resolutions, but
yeah, or just don't do them.
We talked about New Year's resolutions. I did post a poll because I was curious and I knew this was going to be the topic. I'm not sure. Have you had a chance to look at it recently? Do you know what number one was?
I haven't looked at it since we started streaming, so I don't know how it ended.
What would you guess? What was the last one you saw, or what would you guess is the number one answer?
I would guess finances or career would be number one, but I wouldn't be surprised if relationships was.
All right, interesting. You are actually off on financial, but that is number two. So financial improvement was number two. Career advance, relationship goals, and don't set resolutions, which was your fucking contribution, by the way. Between financial improvement, between career advance, relationship goals, and don't set resolutions, it's a three-way tie for third place. They all ended up being equal. So financial improvement number two, career, relationship, and not even fucking bothering number three. More gains is number four. More gains with the Z at the end. In other words, he could have actually, by the way, Mateo, you could have just actually selected the number one answer because I think it falls in it, which is fitness commitment.
Yeah.
So fitness commitment, I wouldn't say overwhelmingly won. It only beat financials by.
That's always the one.
That's the big one, right? Like it's even like it's a joke.
And 90% if people fail.
Yeah, it's like it's a meme. It's a joke. So,
yeah.
Fitness commitment won over financial improvement by only 5%, but then the next three were not that far off for third place. And then more gains. I'm not gonna fucking. It's hilarious. I love that he put it in there. By the way, Mateo, I love that you put it in there with a Z. That's the only way to say it. Like if you put the S, then I wouldn't even read your comment.
Yes, more gains.
We also did have some comments that ended up sharing in the actual comments, but Aaron actually says he wants to try getting back into playing a musical instrument, or even two.
Cool.
Yeah, and I mentioned to him, we talked about it earlier, how important it is to have some kind of creative outlet or a hobby. So 100% think that's a great resolution. Then we had Daniel who shared diving deeper into his health, and he's got to stop buying so much damn whiskey, is what he had to say. That Daniel is also a mutual friend of ours in our beer group, so I think you might know which one I'm talking about, Jeffrey. And I told him, no, like focus on your health. Don't worry about giving up the whiskey. Whiskey is good whiskey. And then we had one more from Jason, and he says he wants to be better overall in a sense. Plans on losing weight, being more conscientious about finances, but every time he sets actual tangible goals, ends up failing miserably. Does he need the game just because it's on sale, but he won't actually play it now? No. Should I finish the last 2 nuggets that my kids left? No. Things like that are my goal, but he feels like he sets too lofty of goals in the past. And when can he see that they will not be, or when he sees that they cannot be reached, he just gives up on them.
All about making attainable goals.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's why I saved that one for last, really, is because for one, that sounds like a symptom of setting too many goals and too unattainable goals.
I was thinking just taking one of those, like not eating the nuggets, not eating leftover nuggets. That's your goal for the year. Yeah,
I mean, you've got a lot of things that you want to do, but and I'm not saying that by the way, for Jason and everybody, I don't mean to misinterpret it. I'm not sure that he's saying that those are all his goals for this year.
Yeah.
I think they were just examples of past goals that he set for himself. But I do think that that's a common mistake that a lot of people make, is setting too many goals on what they want to do with themselves. And then I've done it where I still do it. Shit. Where I wake up some days and I'm like, man, I got to lose weight. And also, man, I got to get better at saving money. And also, man, I got to get better at cleaning the house. And also, man, I got to get better at this and better at this. And then I get so obsessed with putting half-ass effort into every single one of them that, of course, I fail at all of them, right? And I think that with New Year's resolutions, the point of the resolution almost is that there's one that you're committing to focusing on. Like, that's the point. Like, don't half-ass it. Pick one that is attainable.
Yes.
And measurable, and then put 100% into it. Don't try and split it between a bunch of other shit.
And if you're not going to commit to it, then don't even bother.
Don't even bother. Yeah. All right. I 100% agree. It's been an absolute blast. I was not expecting this to go past 3 hours. I'm so surprised at the number of people who actually stuck with us. So thank you again for those who stuck with us. Jesse, you can go ahead and, I don't know, you don't have anything that you typically want to share, but if you want to give a goodbye, you go for it.
Drink more craft beer.
Drink more craft beer. All right. That's somebody's, make that your resolution. That's an easy one.
I already do it. I've achieved it.
Yes. Fucking achievable goals. Oh, Rope. Wait, I didn't know if you were still here, Rope. I've got a new friend. His name's well, I don't know his real fucking name, but remember Jesse when I started streaming on Twitch recently again? Yeah, I do. I used to be a gamer. I only really do Clone Hero now, and I've got a new buddy, Rope, who joined me on stream one night, and then we streamed together, and he joined me playing Clone Hero. So I appreciate you checking us out, Rope, because I am sharing it on Twitch for some fucking reason. And he did join us earlier, and he's asking me if I'm doing any jamming tonight. You know what, buddy? I wasn't gonna, but fuck it. Tomorrow's Friday, isn't it?
Yeah,
right.
It is.
All right, you been here? Okay, I don't know. I'm looking at the little audience meter, and it says 0. So apparently that thing's a fucking liar. No, I know. And he just said you don't have to. I know I don't have to, but you fucking. It didn't take much nudging. All right, I kind of want.
We already wanted to.
Yeah, I already wanted to. Now I'm going to choose to not be responsible, and I'll probably be on there in a little bit. But appreciate you hanging out with us. Yeah, I ended up sharing the stream on Twitch or in any other place if you see it there. It's really a mental health podcast focused on men's mental health, and we have a good time. So love you, Jesse. Always love hanging out with you. Can't wait to see you soon. He's coming down here for a
couple months.
Yep, couple months. Everybody else, all one of you, thank you for watching. Go ahead and subscribe, like, all that other shit, and we'll be streaming, at least it's been mostly weekly. I'm not going to guarantee shit, though. But anyway, we'll see you next time. See you soon, Rope, if you're still up, and see you next time, Jesse. Love you, buddy.
You did.
All right.